World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 541, A Supreme Clash to the Death 5330 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Its voice was low and lacked any trace of passion or fervor. Yet, Qinming sensed a hint of tragic solemnity within it. Was it preparing for a battle to the death? Take care of yourself, the five-colored treasure fragment said, offering a reminder to Qinming instead. No one had ever imagined that the grand confrontation between supreme civilizations would erupt like this. It was an event that simply could not be avoided. Beneath the pitch-black and majestic Great Mountain, the 108 divine spirit phantoms seemed to be coming to life. They grew increasingly distinct and massive, hoisting the entire sacred mountain aloft and filling the space between heaven and earth. They're about to clash. Within the mountain and Xuanhuan realm of the gold ranking, many people turned pale. After this single strike, would they even still exist in this world? Let alone the young and able-bodied, even the Earth Immortals had never witnessed such a spectacle. This was the first time in their lives that they were participating in a life-or-death struggle of this supreme magnitude. Exert your full strength. Coordinate to repel the enemy. A 7 convergence realm roared. Hold steady. This is merely the first collision, it's nothing to panic about. At this moment, all the immortals emerged, each standing atop a mountain peak, unleashing their full power to be absorbed and merged by the formation patterns in the void. From the oldest to the youngest, everyone was fighting with everything they had. Though the tension was unbearable, they knew that in this life or death struggle, overthinking was futile. Only by fighting to the death could they hope to survive. Across the vast mountain and Xuanhuan realm, the immortal mist surged. It was as if the people could see the stars of the heavens themselves, their radiance streaming down through the pitch-black firmament. The entire gold ranking thundered, fully transitioning into a state of total war. It was imprinting the pulse of heaven and earth, the very patterns of the Tao. In the darkness, countless threads of golden radiance shimmered, resonating with the stars across the firmament. Its form, resembling mountains and seas, showed signs of evolving into a sea of stars. Do not fear, we are destined to win. The roars of the old totems echoed from the totem-sacred mountain. As the moment for the final, decisive battle arrived, they were calming their descendants. The pitch-black great mountain flowed with Tao resonance like a waterfall. Every inch of its form awakened, radiating the boundless power of the totem and condensing the strength of the many powerful beings within their faction. At this moment, the chi mechanism it emitted was so awe-inspiring that a single, casual strike could level a top-tier Tao lineage. Even a peerless Earth Immortal, no matter how formidable their individual power, would become as fragile as paper before such a clash of great formations. The two factions collided violently, turning the world upside down and shattering the firmament. The surrounding thick clouds exploded and vanished completely. Brilliant Tao patterns, resembling countless massive metal chains, wove and crisscrossed through the sky. For a moment, everyone's minds grew muddled, their vision blacking out as they teetered on the brink of unconsciousness. Their 5 senses were stripped away, leaving only a lingering awareness deep within their souls. They could hear a roar, the Tao sound, omnipresent and echoing within their very spirits. Only after a few moments did sensation return. Their ears burned with the heat of flowing blood, their eyes stung as tissues ruptured, and the metallic tang of blood, mucus, and tears filled their nostrils. Then, a terrifying boom thundered in their ears, and light flooded their vision. Their 5 senses finally returned, allowing them to perceive the world once more. We're alive, it's truly wonderful. Some of the young disciples, who had spent their lives sheltered within the palace of Earth Immortals and were now experiencing their first battle, wept with relief. Not just them, but even their uncles, grandfathers, and the clan's Earth Immortal ancestors had never witnessed such a clash. Everyone was experiencing this for the first time, and none could contain their emotions. At this moment, nothing else was visible. Before their eyes, only the patterns of heaven and earth were clearly discernible, the traces of cosmic order, dazzling and magnificent, like endless, colossal bolts of thunder and lightning crisscrossing the sky as they stitched together the tattered firmament. One could only imagine just how terrifying that head-on collision had been. Across both camps, everyone felt the relief of having survived a catastrophe. In the Xuanhuan realm, after the initial earth-shattering tremors that knocked many off their feet, things quickly stabilized. In the distance, on the pitch-black totem-sacred mountain, black mist churned. The totem carvings on its surface, traces left by the legendary totem sages, had all dimmed slightly. The dozen or so old totems who had been standing before the offensive formation had all collapsed on the mountain peak. Only after a moment did they struggle to their feet, swallowing great medicine to heal their wounds. We won, they declared immediately after rising. Do you see that? White mist is churning within the Xuanhuan realm, they are deliberately masking the heavenly secrets. At least a dozen of their Earth immortals must have died, they daren't reveal the truth. On Totem's sacred mountain, the middle-aged and young generation erupted in cheers upon hearing this, their deafening roars echoing through the heavens. Within the golden ranking realm, many were bewildered. Isn't this just the initial clash? And the enemy is clearly at a disadvantage, what are they celebrating? On Totem's sacred mountain, a great totem of immense status and power transmitted his voice. Earlier, when the three generations, elders, the middle-aged, and the youth, of the two factions clashed, they resorted to underhanded tactics. They enlisted core, saint-level, disciples from other civilizations to join the fray, otherwise, they would have been no match for us. After all, Jade Capital has fallen and vanished. He was rallying their morale, his voice impassioned and stirring. In short, the truth was, they had won. After all, our foundation far surpasses that of the Jade Capital faction. Furthermore, the old totem stated the facts, informing everyone that their reinforcements, from other supreme civilizations, had arrived to hunt the decaying Jade Capital faction. The totem halo behind his head blazed with extraordinary brilliance as he roared, "Maintain our advantage. Steel yourselves. It's time for a fight to the death." The gold ranking silently reviewed the battle, its gaze fixed on the other two mysterious factions. In the firmament, a vast silver ocean surged, while a terrifying, boundless abyss slowly rose. Contemplating the prospect of fighting three, or perhaps even more, opponents at once, the golden ranking remained silent, oblivious to the cheers erupting from the totem faction. Within the mountain and Xuanhuan realm, atop every mountain peak, everyone sensed the strange atmosphere. Why was it so quiet on their side? Why hadn't the gold ranking spoken? Could it be we weren't actually at an advantage just now? In an instant, a heavy weight settled in everyone's hearts, and the entire battlefield grew oppressive. What else can we do? Since we're already here, there's no turning back. Didn't we all write our final letters before coming? Now, there's no time for doubt. We must fight to the death. Inside the gold ranking, from the eldest to the youngest, every summoned warrior was a true elite from their respective lands. Though the battle had come abruptly, and they were tense, they possessed remarkable resilience and the ability to steady themselves. After a moment of reflection and introspection, everyone took a deep breath. With the blood battle imminent, they needed to sever all distracting thoughts. Now was the time to unleash their full power. In their eyes, having burned their bridges, only fighting to the death could offer a chance of survival. Kill. The crowd roared in unison. The gold ranking responded in kind, activating more formations. Densely packed, they summoned slaughterous power, simultaneously guarding against the Silver Sea and the Abyss while intensifying their attack on the totem faction. On the pitch-black sacred mountain, morale soared, and the cheers had yet to subside. An old totem warned, "Do not grow arrogant or reckless. Our opponent is strong, we must not let our guard down." Another great totem added, "Indeed. That last moment was actually quite dangerous." He continued, "If we don't push harder, the fallen Jade Capital will truly surpass us." The old totems knew all too well that there was a gap between them, they were actually at a slight disadvantage. But with morale running high, there was no room to speak of failure. Moreover, the totem system relied above all on devout followers to sustain their altars. Besides, with a supreme ally by their side, ready to join the hunt against the Jade Capital faction, what did they have to fear? Kill. A massive, bloody clash erupted once more between the two factions. The gold ranking roared, unleashing billions of immortal rays that pierced the night veil. They drew endless streams of divine fire and heavenly light from beyond the heavens, vast and boundless as a river of stars. The totem faction, too, had its own formidable strength. The sacred mountain's form shifted, its entire massive bulk transforming into an ancient altar. Upon it, countless carved images emerged, the legendary totems of history, each a powerful figure whose great achievements had been personally inscribed onto the mountain walls by a supreme being. The entire mountain had once been the altar of a supreme totem. As the clash erupted, a terrifying avian shadow rose from the distant silver vast ocean, its fearsome eyes snapping open. Amidst a resonant humming of the Tao, it unleashed a barrage of blindingly bright beams, resembling a sea of divine feathers or an endless cascade of flying swords, that swept across the heavens and earth. Within the gold ranking, the mountains and seas trembled. They channeled all the newly summoned outworldly divine fire, heavenly light, and stellar projections against the unknown supreme civilization. Meanwhile, the gold ranking itself charged toward the totem sacred mountain. Within the mountains and seas Xuanhuan realm, everyone's eyes turned crimson with rage. As they fought a blood battle against one supreme civilization, other factions had indeed joined the fray. This was an irreconcilable blood feud, a life and death calamity. It held. An old earth immortal roared with excitement. They watched as the gold ranking swept out the radiance of the sun and moon, endless flowing fire, and a vast ocean of heavenly light, all of which withstood the attack from the silver sea. The sky covering silver feathers and endless sword light failed to cut through. The gold ranking's defensive power was far greater than they had imagined. Simultaneously, their second clash with the totem sacred mountain erupted with deafening force. The Jade Capital faction, from the peerless experts of the Seventh Realm down to the green-faced youths, all unleashed their strongest power. The energy was channeled and amplified through the formation's runic patterns, then hurled toward the sacred mountain. In the next instant, their vision was once again plunged into darkness. Simultaneously, everyone felt the world turn upside down, the entire realm of mountains and seas heaved and undulated, as if the very scroll containing it were about to be overturned. Yet, at the critical moment, the gold ranking held firm. Though it shook violently, its peerless formation isolated the damage. The beams of lethal energy from the totem system failed to truly penetrate the realm of mountains and seas. One after another, ancient spectral totems soared from the sacred mountain, only to be torn apart and pulverized by the Tao patterns surging from the golden ranking. The sea of night mist evaporated. The heavens were torn asunder once more, and the eternal Tao patterns intertwined again, stitching the world together like countless thick golden threads weaving through the void as massive bolts of lightning pierced the sky. The totem sacred mountain shuddered violently. At its summit, within the attack zone, a group of old totems stood. 6 of the strongest were struck head-on by the golden radiance, shattering a corner of the formation. In an instant, their bodies were crisscrossed with countless bloody lines. They began to leak light, spewing divine power into the air. Their flesh, essence chi, and pure yang soul light were all being stripped away. They decayed at a visible rate. With a series of hissing sounds, the 6 great totems disintegrated, exploding on the spot. Their blood burned like raging flames atop the mountain, and their remains rotted away instantly, as if aged by millennia. Besides them, over a dozen other totems stumbled backward, blood streaming from their 7 orifices. Their bodies were riddled with wounds pierced through by the golden radiance, their torsos glowing with light from the holes. At the summit, the gathered totems were seized by sheer terror. As for those at the foot of the mountain or halfway up the slopes, only a few managed to glimpse, through the churning black mist, ancient totems collapsing and their bodies exploding apart. Many more people, unable to see the summit, were asking, did we win this clash? We won. A great totem on the summit said bitterly, though his mind was already racing, wondering how to retreat with dignity or how to get their allies to step up. On the pitch-black great mountain, the middle-aged and young generation totem seeds below coughed up blood and cheered, feeling a glimmer of hope. They believed they would soon crush Jade Capital. The gold ranking was in a state of war, and its formation was active. Not only was its attack power immense, but its other capabilities were equally remarkable. It shattered the protective mist of the enemy's camp, capturing partial real-time images for their own forces to see clearly. Within the Xuanhuan realm, the crowd, already incredibly tense and anxious, stared blankly in disbelief after seeing the situation on the opposing side. 6 totems had plummeted from the summit and perished instantly, yet the enemy was still cheering and celebrating. The scene felt surreal, almost like a dream. A Grandmaster from Star Mountain couldn't help but speak up, asking cautiously, Lord Gold Ranking, Jin Bang, it seems. We have the advantage. Gold Ranking replied calmly, remaining largely silent as usual. This. From the young to the old, the elite warriors, who had been fighting desperately for survival in a bloody battle, felt their hearts numb with disbelief. They had been so tense earlier, yet the reality was nothing like they had imagined. Their own side was incredibly powerful, clearly capable of suppressing the totem system. Yet, the gold ranking had remained largely silent. The gold ranking finally snapped back to the present and said, I am keeping a close watch on the other 2 supreme civilizations. Their power is not to be underestimated. Well, all right then. Everyone exhaled deeply, their pounding hearts calmed, and they regained their composure. So we're actually this strong. We didn't know until we fought. This was just a minor test, and we've already wiped out the 6 great totems in one go. From the youngest to the oldest, they all felt they had been scaring themselves for no reason. During the blood battle just moments ago, they had already begun mentally reviewing the contents of their own last wills. The gold ranking warned, don't let your guard down. There are still 2 supreme systems nearby. Have you suffered any casualties? A booming voice echoed above the totem sacred mountain, emanating from the silver sea. It was the supreme allies inquiring about the situation. We've already had deaths and injuries. Why haven't you joined the fray yet? On the totem sacred mountain, some of the veteran warriors spoke with a hint of anger, clearly displeased. A voice drifted from the silver sea, weren't we just seeing what Jade Capital was made of? We agreed beforehand that you would make the first move to test the waters. You certainly didn't turn down the benefits we offered for that, did you? Furthermore, the voice noted that it had actually intervened just moments ago. An old totem asked with anger, "Abyss civilization, why have you remained silent and taken no action?" A ghostly cold voice came from the abyss, saying, "We were probing the distance to see if Jade Capital had any reinforcements. Unexpectedly, they are truly facing our encirclement all on their own." Totem Sacred Mountain personally sent a voice transmission, saying, "Now, since we have tested them, it is time for us to act together." Good. Silver Sea agreed. It should be so. Abyss civilization is prepared to personally test the opponent. After all, they didn't quite trust or approve of the Totem civilization's probing. Of course, the Totem faction blocking the very front was a consensus between Silver Sea and Abyss civilization. Without any other words, the Tao patterns here intertwined, and the night sky lit up as bright as day. The confrontation of the supreme systems began again. Silver Sea moved abnormally, and the Abyss drew near. Although it didn't completely suppress them, it was indeed far more dangerous than the previous 2 times. The people of the 2 great systems had entered the fray. The gold ranking's voice, so cold it lacked any emotional fluctuation, sounded, "This is a battle to the death, everyone. Do not hold back." Everyone went all out, and everyone's heartstrings tightened again. From young to old, they all treated it as their final bloody battle. Some old Earth immortals even regarded it as their last battle in the mortal world. Either survive or dissolve into a blood mist, vanishing with the night mist. Even the dog sword immortal, an ancient monster who had lived for over 1,000 years, felt a chill run down its spine. It shifted rapidly between its dog and panda forms, nourishing its sword, drawing it, and swinging it in one fluid motion to unleash its most powerful strike. Zhou Kun, the most senior figure present, also had bloodshot eyes as he launched the pinnacle attack of his life. The power of his prime as a half-step heavenly god seemed to have returned. The other true gods and earth immortals also became translucent as the powers of the god and immortal Daos surged, manifesting into the spiritual aspects of 7th realm ancient monsters that charged forward. The gold rankings formation was fully awakened, merging completely with the realm beyond the heavens. It was impossible to tell if the light was starlight, flowing fire, or heavenly light. Beams of light, like a divine waterfall connecting heaven and earth, poured down into the formation, manifesting as the stars of all heavens. At this moment, the golden ranking had ramped up its combat readiness to the absolute limit, its power charging toward a terrifying new peak, far more formidable than anything seen before. Facing the probes from the Silver Sea and the Abyss, the gold ranking still focused on defense. The stars of all heavens emerged, their starlight weaving together like a sky-covering spiderweb that spread toward those 2 directions. Facing the Totem Sacred Mountain directly, the gold ranking activated its war state, empowering the techniques of anyone within the Great Formation. It didn't just favor the Earth Immortals but also heavily boosted the middle-aged and young generation. For instance, Qiancheng's lightning runes were being amplified infinitely by the gold ranking. The terrifying thunderlight tore through everything in its path, roaring toward the Totem Sacred Mountain. Immediately after, the supreme inheritance of Jade Capital, which Yun Jianyu and Tang Yusheng had obtained, was also empowered by the gold ranking. It was as if the Lord of Jade Capital from the distant past had stepped through the night and returned to the present world. The dog sword immortal shouted in excitement and fervor, "Good. Push my one sword to the absolute peak, to its ultimate sublimation, to rival old Lu." He swung the green bamboo sword, its blade flashing with alternating black and white light. The thick sword Qi, amplified by the gold ranking, grew ever more terrifying, like a great calamity's light sweeping across the heavens and earth toward the Totem Sacred Mountain. Zhou Kun's palm blade was also empowered, faintly flowing with the patterns of a heavenly god. It shattered the void before him, his spiritual aspect's hand appearing like a mountain range, its fingerprints like deep ravines and valleys. This was the strongest strike of his spiritual aspect. On the other side, the sage's fist imprint also erupted, his chaos force empowered and pushed to the absolute peak of its domain. It became even more terrifying, its mere ripples cracking the very heavens. His mount, the great red dragon, cackled wildly behind him, sharing in the glory. Meanwhile, the sage unleashed a fierce punch forward, his chaos force shattering the heavens as it tore through the sky like a trillion bolts of thunder and lightning. The attacks of all immortals were empowered, transforming into heavenly blades that surged from their respective Xuanhuan mountain and Seat realms, slashing toward the Totem Sacred Mountain. Among them, the strikes of a few exceptional figures were particularly striking and prominent. Whose sword light is that? Suddenly, voices from both sides cried out in astonishment. The multicolored sword light had initially seemed gentle, but as it neared its target, it began to vibrate violently, distorting the sea of night mist and collapsing the void, growing stronger with every moment. Undoubtedly, the gold ranking had bestowed upon it immense power, pushing it to the absolute domain and causing the faces of many Earth immortals to turn pale. 9-colored sword qi, piercing through yin-yang, the 5 elements, wind, and thunder, 9 great domains fused into a single sword. This is a legend on the path of sword cultivation, the ultimate pursuit of a sword immortal. And this domain has actually appeared here. Many were utterly shocked. Is that the sword light of, one sword pierces 36 heavens? He's here too. Back when he engaged in sword duels in the heavens, Yi Jian, one sword usually displayed only an 8-colored sword qi. Many had never seen the 9th color, but old Earth immortals had analyzed the battle and deduced that, one sword, had been holding back that day. Ninefold perfection realm. Even from within the Silver Sea, such a voice echoed. Many among their high-ranking figures understood sword intent, otherwise, they would not have been able to unleash such a barrage of divine feather light, an onslaught resembling a dense swarm of immortal swords striking in unison. Even from that vast, boundless abyss, a cold, ghostly voice drifted out, piercing through the 9 great domains. Has the Jade Capital faction truly given birth to a supreme sword immortal? The most powerful experts of the Totem faction, those at the highest levels, all had their expressions change. This was no good news. The Jade Capital faction possessed such a being. Legend held that achieving perfection across the 9 realms, ninefold perfection realm, marked one as a supreme sword immortal, a figure capable of cutting a swath of destruction through the 7th realm, with scarcely anyone able to withstand the edge of their sword. Zhou Kun's spiritual aspect, the sage's fist light, and the dog sword immortal's yin-yang great Tao were already terrifying enough. Now, with the lightning runes boiling and the Lord of Jade Capital's secret technique reappearing, a supreme sword immortal had also emerged. This truly suppressed the Totem faction. This was too terrifying, too difficult to fight. Clearly, the gold rankings empowerment had taken into account all people, all mystical techniques, and the ultimate techniques of every Tao lineage. In the next instant, the Star River flowed, boundless and brilliant. Star Mountain's techniques were amplified and unleashed in a devastating strike. Purple Qi soared into the sky, sweeping across heaven and earth as Purple Heaven Cave's secret technique erupted. A heavenly god descended, blasting the firmament apart with a single palm strike. The ultimate attack of Tiān Ridge had been unleashed. The Totem faction's veteran experts felt their scalps tingle with apprehension. They were the ones who had initiated the invasion, yet now, why did it feel like something was terribly wrong? Why had they fallen into such a state of endless passivity? With a thunderous boom, the two sides clashed in a full-scale attack. The entire Totem Sacred Mountain shuddered violently. In some areas, the formations were torn open, instantly unleashing waves of agonized screams as massive clouds of blood mist rose into the air. Ah! Even ancient monsters of the 7th realm were heard wailing in despair, having met with disaster. Kill. On the gold rankings side, the warriors fought in perfect coordination, their morale soaring. The sight of their mystical techniques being amplified further invigorated them. Qinming hadn't expected his 9-colored sword qi to be favored by the gold ranking, truly reaching perfection. As he swept it outward, its power was boundlessly terrifying. The 9 domains, imbued with the infinite tribulation of slaughter, struck the sacred mountain. Gahahaha. The great red dragon roared with wild laughter, shouting as he fought alongside the sage. He clearly saw a great totem shatter under the impact of the chaos force. What's going on? Didn't the Jade Capital disappear? That faction should have fallen by now. How can there still be a sword immortal at the ninefold perfection realm? And that fist light. And the phantom of the Lord of Jade Capital, it looks as if he has reappeared. Panic gripped the Totem faction, formations were shattered across multiple zones, bloody mists erupted, and casualties mounted heavily. With a sharp crack, the sacred mountain actually began to fissure, a massive chunk plummeted down with a thunderous crash, while the elite forces stationed upon it were utterly obliterated. In the distance, the Silver Sea and the Abyss civilization were left stunned. Is the Totem faction really this useless? They wondered. They were on the verge of collapse after just the 3rd clash. Now, as they attempted to intervene, they found themselves blocked by a great net woven from the light of the stars of all heavens. They refrained from offering aid, so incensed by their allies' incompetence that they no longer wished to acknowledge them. Is the Totem system truly a supreme civilization? The high-ranking leaders of the two allies questioned their very understanding of reality. Rumble. In the sea of night mist, a vast section of the Totem Sacred Mountain had indeed collapsed. If not for the lingering and reviving formation runes personally inscribed by the Supreme Totem at the last moment, the entire ancient altar would have been torn asunder. The Totem faction had naturally committed its finest forces, conscripting dense armies from all over. Yet now, after suffering devastating losses in this single engagement, the ancient totems could only watch their hearts bleed. The area was now shrouded in a blood mist, a scene of utter carnage. How could this be? The hawkish great totems struggled to accept reality. They had been the aggressors, yet now they found themselves on the brink of total collapse. If the situation continued to develop like this, they would very likely have to fight a life or death defensive battle. For a moment, the totems, who had previously shouted about a great victory and their own side winning, could no longer shout like that to boost morale. Their own mindsets had become completely unbalanced. Yagagaga. In the gold ranking, however, there was a scene of excitement and joy, and the more people fought, the more confident they became. Have you launched your attack? The old totems were on the verge of exploding with rage, berating the supreme allies, feeling as if they alone were bearing the brunt of all the firepower. The totem faction felt somewhat regretful. They had wanted to make a grand appearance and elevate their status in the night mist world, wanting the four directions to collectively revere them as a supreme civilization. As a result, however, it seemed as if they had exposed their backsides. Some top-tier experts in the totem faction began to reflect. They seemed to have lost themselves in the chorus of Big Brother from all sides of the night mist world. A great totem roared in anger, "Today, we must carefully consider how to survive. The supreme allies are all bastards, completely unreliable." Without even thinking, after this battle, their reputation and status would plummet significantly in the night mist world. This time, instead of showing their faces, they had been thoroughly exposed and humiliated. This feeling made them extremely uncomfortable. Losing face in the night mist world was like being trampled and humiliated by a wild boar. In truth, the Silver Sea and the Abyss civilization were also furious. These two supreme civilizations had truly mistaken the totem faction for a main force, viewing them as allies capable of leading the charge. Now, it seemed, they were nothing but a burden. In their eyes, the totem faction might as well be rated as a secondary civilization. The Silver Sea and Abyss civilization, having been dragged into the conflict, felt screwed over by the totem system they had relied on as their main combat force. The latter simply couldn't hold its own. On the totem sacred mountain, blood mist flowed like a river from the torn open formation, continuously surging outward. Within the enveloping golden radiance, the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars stood silently in a row, drinking deeply, as they feasted on an unimaginable amount of blood sacrifice power. In the Xuanhuan realm, the sage's expression shifted slightly. This ultimate weapon far exceeded his expectations, to think it could still draw power even in such a situation. With a complex expression, he sighed, "I once personally wielded these 36 divine pillars. Alas, after leaving my homeland for the outer domain, they no longer regarded me as an elder. Being gone for just a few decades or a century is enough to have one's family registration erased, let alone over 500 years. When I returned, I was treated as a stranger." Inside the gold ranking, Qinming unleashed the nine-colored sword Qi. After the empowerment, he experienced the supreme power of a sword immortal and felt immensely gratified. Beside him, the yellow canopy umbrella trembled slightly. A woman's enchanting face appeared on its surface. She looked at the dense blood mist over the totem sacred mountain with great anxiety, but she was helpless, she couldn't get out. At this moment, she desperately wanted to imitate Tang Yusheng and cry softly. A grand feast was laid out before her, yet she couldn't partake. To see it but not be able to eat was truly a sorrowful thing. Qinming soothed her, saying, "Do not fret. Once the life and death struggle in the Supreme Realm concludes, and the Primordial Qi and Xuanhuan Qi are exhausted, that will likely be our moment to step onto the stage." The gold ranking declared, "Heavenly Clan, Abyss Civilization, you refuse to retreat, don't you? Then we shall fight to the bitter end." In the Silver Sea and the Abyss Civilization, their high-ranking officials were furious. They felt they had underestimated the variable that was the totem faction and shouldn't have regarded it as a mere auxiliary force. The gold ranking stared at the other two supreme civilizations, prepared to fight all the opponents of the night mist world alone. "Since we're already here, let's exchange blows," a voice echoed from the Silver Sea. In the vast and boundless abyss, a grand voice also boomed, "Battle." The gold ranking replied coldly, "Fine. Then we will see this supreme bloodbath through to the end." It considered these two factions even more detestable and hateful, deserving of extermination. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 542, 1 Against 3. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The Silver Sea and the Abyss were both renowned supreme systems. The golden ranking was imperious, intent on taking on all its enemies single-handedly. Within the mountain sea, Xuanhuan realm, hearts grew heavy. They had just fought the totem system, and now they had to clash with two supreme civilizations. The outcome of the day was uncertain. Yet, many hot-blooded young men felt an irrepressible urge to fight those two great systems to the death. After all, it was those two civilizations that had instigated the totem faction to join the fray. Tracing the root cause, the Silver Sea and the Abyss were the true culprits. They harbored deep hostility, hiding in the shadows while manipulating others to fight their battles. The Silver Sea shimmered brilliantly and spoke, "Fellow Taoist, you are too hasty. We have traveled far simply to exchange ideas. The interaction between different systems can spark magnificent fireworks of civilization." The gold ranking's tone was cold. "Even at this critical juncture, you still say such things. Don't you find it hypocritical? Then again, it suits your nature perfectly, always double standard, always wrapping and beautifying your acts of burning, killing, and plundering, calling invasion, the spread of civilization." The Silver Sea spoke, "Fellow Taoist, your prejudices run deep. You have already made up your mind and are viewing us through a biased lens. We heard the Jade capital had vanished and were deeply concerned. Fearing chaos would erupt here, we came to investigate." A commotion rippled through the Shanghai realm. The Silver Sea's hypocritical facade infuriated the others, who had just endured a life-and-death battle. They felt a strong surge of revulsion. This faction had instigated the conflict and manipulated the totem faction into joining the fray, yet they could still utter such sanctimonious words without even a blush. The gold ranking declared, "Either speak plainly, or shut your mouth." It was gathering strength, ready for the ultimate battle at any moment. Simultaneously, it secretly informed its own faction of the true origins of the Silver Sea and the Abyss. The Silver Sea was a vast expanse of energy harvested from beyond the heavens, an incredibly rare and precious resource capable of nurturing pure yang consciousness and powering supreme formations. Evidently, a group of ancient monsters lay dormant within the Silver Sea. As for this civilization, its origins lay with the Alliance of the Heavens. This major organization was initially composed mainly of flying races, such as the Black Flame Phoenix, the Seven-Headed Heavenly Dragon, and the Silver-Blooded Winged People, all of which were powerful clans. Later, they began calling themselves the Heavenly Clan. Which key members they absorbed and which faction rose to dominance remains unknown. This organization emerged only in recent times but ascended with fierce intensity. By now, it has already become one of the supreme civilizations, unfathomably powerful. Across the vast reaches of the Night Mist world, the Heavenly Clan's reputation is formidable, backed by a terrifying and very real track record of crushing other supreme systems. As for the Abyss civilization, one needs only look at their habitat to get a sense of their nature. Besides, as the name suggests, it's not hard to guess. This system originated in the deepest depths of the earth. Therefore, it is also known as the Underworld civilization. It has existed for an incredibly long time, earning its place as one of the most ancient civilizations. Through the long ages, it has never declined, always maintaining its strength. In truth, during the ancient era, the Underworld civilization nearly faced annihilation. Legend has it that they contacted the abyssal species, piercing through the layered mist zones to summon reinforcements, and ultimately counterattacked to destroy a supreme civilization. Because of this heritage, the Underworld civilization is considered dangerous and lethal, and is more often referred to as the Abyss civilization. Its enduring existence, sustaining past glories while witnessing the collapse and dissolution of old rivals, is a testament to its terrifying power. A voice echoed from the Heavenly Clan's Silver Sea, "The Jade capital has vanished. We cannot stand by and let this region fall into chaos. As supreme civilizations, we must stand united to maintain stability in this sector." The gold ranking retorted, "You've already stormed into our backyard to covet our territory, yet you still spout this righteousness and morality. Have you no shame?" After recounting the origins of the two supreme civilizations to its own faction, it had lost all patience, ready to launch a full-scale war at any moment. The voice from the Silver Sea boomed, "According to our investigations, you have long oppressed the various races of the Divine Lament Plains, where bloody conflicts are constant. We are willing to intervene and mediate." Within the Shanghai realm, everyone seethed with indignation. This was utterly shameless, to infiltrate the depths of the Jade capital realm and still cloak their actions in such righteous words. From that abyss, a cold, ghostly voice also drifted out, "We believe there are grave issues within the Taishu territory, we must intervene to help you maintain stability." The members of this faction no longer bothered to hide their true nature. Within the Shanghai realm, an earth immortal with snow-white hair and beard roared, "You mask your blood-stained hands with lies and dress up your atrocities as righteous acts. How much more shameless can you be?" The gold ranking, however, remained composed and indifferent. "If you wish to invade, let's see if you have the strength. Come and fight us. You dare speak to us in such a manner. Have you forgotten the forbidden legends of my Abyss civilization? The supreme civilization Reaper." An icy, ruthless voice echoed from the colossal abyss, its threat naked and undisguised. Earlier, they had been silent and reserved, saying little. But when the moment of truth arrived, they revealed themselves to be cold and ruthless, hardly a group to be trifled with. An Earth immortal retorted, "You subterranean creatures, things that cannot bear the light. If you hadn't accidentally breached parts of the abyssal realm and borrowed troops to march out, you would have been exterminated long ago. Who are you threatening? Any supreme civilization that has survived since ancient times has weathered far greater storms. Why should we fear the likes of you?" The gold ranking issued a cold voice, "No need for further words, let us simply sweep through and annihilate them." Now, within the Xuanhuan realm, the atmosphere had already reached a boiling point. The crowd was consumed by righteous fury, their indignation toward the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss faction reaching its absolute limit. These two supreme civilizations were the culprits behind the Blood War incident. Yet even now, they maintained this posture, perfectly embodying hypocrisy and arrogance. They invade our realm and still dare to insult us with such words and deeds. So what if the two factions have joined forces? We'll tear through them. Within the Xuanhuan realm, everyone's emotions were completely ignited. Combined with their recent victory, having just dealt a crushing blow to a supreme system, their fighting spirit was at an all-time high. It was mainly because the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization had pushed things too far, trampling on them with such blatant disrespect that it had become unbearable. The gold ranking judged that the time was right. The ancient monsters and the young and strong were all brimming with fighting spirit, and the people's hearts were united. It was time to fight. In the distance, atop the majestic sacred mountain of the totem faction, someone whispered, "Have we been forgotten?" Their faction was extremely unpopular with their allies. After the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss had intervened, neither had paid them much mind. Slay them. Overthrow the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization. Within the golden ranking realm, people's emotions were pushed to the breaking point. The totem faction, in a sense, had also reached its limit, though they were all shitting their pants. The Silver Sea surged, its voice booming as it drew near this territory. "It is regrettable. We had hoped to engage in a friendly exchange in a more tempered atmosphere. Now it seems we were merely wishful. Thus, we can only display a fraction of our power. Perhaps then, both sides can sit down and speak properly once more." Even at this moment, this faction maintained its elegant hypocrisy, which was, in truth, the height of arrogance. Clang. Within the gold ranking, a colossal, blindingly bright sword of light ignited. Vast and boundless, it swept across the Silver Sea ahead like a breaching dam. In an instant, the Heavenly Clan retaliated. Countless divine feathers shot forth, piercing the entire night veil like a deluge of arrows and densely packed flying swords, all trailing long streaks of light that crisscrossed the sky. The spectacle was so immense it seemed to tear the pitch-black firmament asunder. The Abyss civilization also joined the fray, its words even more domineering. "Since you refuse our terms and choose to fight, the fire of the supreme civilization may soon be extinguished." The gold ranking seemed to merge completely with the heavens beyond, as divine waterfalls cascaded down. It was impossible to tell if they were starlight, flowing fire, or heavenly light. At this moment, the stars shone brilliantly, and the Xuanhuan realm seemed to be evolving into a sea of stars. In an instant, the constellations of the heavens vaguely coalesced, slowly revolving around the gold ranking, one magnificent star after another. The power of the gold ranking soared to a new height, its defenses maxed out, and it began to attack. Kill. All the immortals and the young and strong roared, unleashing their techniques and attack methods to their fullest, which were then amplified and boosted by the gold ranking. Terrifying heavenly human spiritual aspects rose and crashed into that resplendent silver sea. Even more brilliant fist lights illuminated the vast sky, amplified by the gold ranking, and smashed into the pitch-black abyss. "Those who oppose us all die in the end," an ancient voice echoed from the abyss. Their arrogance and domineering nature were evident, even while fighting for their lives, they still clung to their self-importance. "Cut the damn act." The dog-sword immortal greeted warmly. Even an ancient monster like him couldn't stomach that kind of attitude, let alone the young and strong. A voice echoed from the Silver Sea, "Fellow Taoists of the Jade Capital, you underestimate the world. In this night mist world, with the three supreme civilizations personally present, no matter how powerful you are, you will be crushed." In response, a sky full of stars descended like an endless rain of burning meteors. Countless comets streaked across the heavens, carrying boundless fire as they crashed down. The Silver Sea surged with tumultuous waves, churning relentlessly. Immediately after, formation platforms rose from the sea-like islands, rapidly weaving visible patterns that finally stabilized the boundless tsunami. The Heavenly Clan was infuriated. Having risen to power swiftly, they were extremely aggressive to their core, a league of the most top-tier species with a fierce streak of vengeance. At that moment, pitch-black avian shadows ascended from the Silver Sea, and a seven-headed heavenly dragon twisted space to emerge upon the water's surface. Various ancient monsters revealed themselves, their roars shaking the heavens as they unleashed their full power through mystical techniques. The entire Silver Sea seethed. Endless streams of light and vast arrays of Dao patterns bloomed there, then swept toward the gold rankings. Legendary creatures emerged, their colossal figures towering over the sea, terrifyingly immense, entwined with order patterns and radiating divine light. Amidst this intense battle, a discordant voice rang out, "Master, there's a female dragon over there. Old Red has been single for over 500 years, won't you take pity on me?" The great red dragon was ecstatic, urging the sage even as it fought with all its might. The sage replied, "Do you think the seven-headed dragon is so easily caught? It stands at the absolute peak of the seventh realm. If this era weren't so flawed, it might have even advanced further." Roar. In the Silver Sea, a dragon's roar shook the nine heavens. The colossal creature churned up monstrous waves, its silver radiance washing over the sky and illuminating the heavens. The seven-headed dragon had clearly heard the undisguised transmission. Its 14 eyes snapped open, firing 14 beams of light that resonated with heaven and earth, collapsing the void as they flew. "What a vicious dragon," the sage declared. His fist shattered the sky, its power amplified by the gold ranking into a surging sea of thunder that crashed down. The battle erupted. From the abyss, colossal figures rose one after another, roaring at the heavens like a legion of demon gods ascending from the depths of hell. Each was as tall as a mountain, and their every move tore the earth asunder. "You're taking advantage of our forbearance, aren't you?" A peerless true god roared, leading a group of seventh realm ancient monsters. They unleashed a barrage of sword strikes and mystical arts upon the abyss. In an instant, the entire abyss was illuminated. The figures, as towering as mountains, were each one more ferocious than the last. Some were clad in black scaled armor, some bore massive ox horns, and others had faces covered in golden eyes, all of them monsters. The brief clash was incredibly fierce, and both sides found it rather troublesome. Within the Xuanhuan mountain seat realm, the nine-colored ice mountain creaked and groaned. The coffin lids could no longer suppress the immortal and divine bodies that were in the process of awakening. Some ancient monsters had been roused and already knew their fate, ready to emerge into the world at any moment. Gold ranking remained composed and said, "No rush, a situation like this is nothing, we can handle it. Their main forces may not have arrived yet, and we must also guard against other, crimson eyes, watching this place. This old one has roamed the world for 1400 years. I never thought that in my twilight years, I would have the chance to personally annihilate the Jade Capital faction. How exhilarating." In the Silver Sea, waves surged like mountains. A silver-blooded winged person, his entire body steaming with silvery white light, unfurled a pair of massive wings that obscured the sky. He brandished a silver spear and thrust it toward gold ranking. Clearly, this was an ancient monster of the seventh realm, terrifyingly powerful. Only such a being would dare to make such arrogant claims, intentionally trying to crush his opponent's morale while flaunting his own might. Around him, many other ancient monsters coordinated their attacks. Combined with the own power of the sea formation platform, they made him appear like an awakened heavenly god. Silver blood aura surged all over his body. His spear, impossibly thick, erupted with a piercing aura that merged with Dao patterns, piercing the night sky as it thrust toward the gold ranking. Arrogant. Some earth immortals sneered. A mere firefly daring to compete with the bright moon. Even the gold ranking spoke faintly. Then, it boosted Qinming's nine-colored sword chi and signaled the five-colored treasure fragment to merge with him. A single rising star is enough to cut down your sharp edge. For the first time, Qinming felt that aligning with the grand momentum made even a life or death clash feel exhilarating, transforming a deadly duel into a moment of profound ease and satisfaction. The five-colored treasure fragment instantly liquefied, covering his entire body. An indescribable Dao resonance empowered him, pushing his nine-colored sword chi to its absolute limit. The yin-yang, five elements, wind, and thunder, the nine great domains, roared in unison, their power amplified without limit by the gold ranking. This single sword strike swelled to an unfathomable degree. The ninefold perfection realm. The supreme sword immortal from the Jade Capital has made his move. In the Silver Sea, top-tier beings revealed expressions of shock, their countenances grave and filled with extreme vigilance. The nine-colored sword chi reached its peak brilliance, piercing the heavens before slashing down toward this region. Boundless sword chi and endless patterns filled every corner of existence, like a cascading river of stars. Clang! The towering silver-blooded winged person shuddered violently. The war spear in his hand snapped, falling like a mountain range into the vast ocean and kicking up a sky-piercing silver wave. In that lightning-fast instant, he manifested the seven great spiritual aspects, from divine demon to void mist, then to heavenly sun. But none could block that single beam of sword light. PFF'd. His head began to split open, the crack spreading down to his legs. He was cleaved in two by this single strike. Ah! He shrieked, sinking into the seabed to escape the death tribulation. He had refused to believe it, attempting to withstand the peerless sword immortal's strike head-on, but he had truly been unable to stop it. In truth, in that fleeting moment, the gold ranking had commanded the Xuanhuan realm, channeling the power of the 9 great domains, yin-yang, 5 elements, wind, and thunder, into the 9-colored sword light unleashed by Qin Ming. Only then did the title of Supreme Sword Immortal truly live up to its name. If I'm slashing anyway, might as well do it again. This second strike charged toward the abyss. With a thunderous boom, a figure as massive as a mountain was overthrown by the 9-colored sword light. Its colossal head fell, and blood gushed like a waterfall. Hiss. Then, all the immortals acted in unison, combining their efforts and channeling the power of the 9 great domains. Seizing the opportunity, Qin Ming unleashed his third sword. The totem faction, which had temporarily withdrawn from the battlefield, had intended to cast a curse. But they were dragged back into the fray, only to be struck by the Supreme Sword Immortal's one sword. The totem sacred mountain glowed, exerting its full power to resist. However, against this 9-colored sword chi, bolstered by the gold ranking, the already damaged sacred mountain could not withstand the full force. A vast sword light swept across, and the 2 great totems standing atop the peak exploded. Another corner of the sacred mountain's formation was shattered. The members of the totem faction were both shocked and enraged. Even though they had removed themselves from the battlefield, they were still struck by a sword. Since you refuse to compromise and reject our terms, then we shall attempt to annihilate a supreme civilization. A terrifying voice boomed from the depths of the abyss. Then, a magnificent, otherworldly flower bloomed from the abyss's entrance, rising to an immense size before covering the entire chasm. Its petals unfurled in endless layers, inscribed with infinite Tao patterns. A thunderous roar erupted from the silver sea as a grand platform ascended. Upon it stood a colossal statue that trembled violently, its stone skin flaking off in tatters. It opened its eyes, which shone like 2 suns ascending to illuminate all creation, instantly turning the world as bright as day. The supreme blood battle had reached its fever pitch. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 543, You and the mountains and rivers are all mere passers-by, 5,573 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. The Heavenly Clan and the Abyss Civilization, 2 great supreme systems, were both showcasing their awe-inspiring foundations. Above the 9 heavens, the pitch-black night was being burned away. A shimmering vast ocean, like mercury surging and moonlight flowing, glistened with a plain, ethereal tranquility. A colossal stone statue of a woman rose from the sea, shattering this serenity. Her eyes burned like the scorching sun, wherever their blinding light touched, the surrounding void twisted, the sea of night mist exploded, and the very heavens seemed to collapse. As towering waves crashed against the sky, the stone statue roared to life, simultaneously manifesting 8 spiritual manifestations: a stone man holding the book of flame, an energy form wreathed in colorful clouds, a flesh form holding a battle spear. Within the Xuanhuan realm of the gold ranking, a peak earth immortal suddenly struck. A chain of order shot out like a dragon soaring through the heavens, aiming straight for the stone statue's head, intent on piercing it. As the woman opened and closed her eyes, beams of light as fierce as the Liang shot out. The dazzling spiritual chain unleashed by the 7th realm old monster instantly disintegrated, melted away. Deep within the gold ranking, the sage stretched his body. His entire spine undulated like a great dragon, bones cracking and popping. He unleashed his strongest strike, and a brilliant fist light instantly filled the night sky, sweeping forth amidst a cascade of heavenly thunder. In the silver sea, the book of flame in the stone statue woman's right hand flipped open on its own. Its pages were covered in dense symbols, which blocked and extinguished the peerless fist light. Within the mountains and seas realm, the expressions of many shifted. Who can challenge me after I have trampled the night sea? The stone statue woman's grand, heavenly voice boomed. She stood upon the sea's surface, towering like a mountain, her presence shaking the 9 heavens. What kind of monster is this? The earth immortals in the gold ranking all looked grim. A weapon of war belonging to a civilization. From which era was it created? On the other side, the vast abyss ascended into the night sky, looming high above the heavy layers of clouds. The exotic flower had just bloomed, yet it already possessed an aura that surpassed all other blossoms. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a demonically alluring flower that fed on the sunset and drank the dew, absorbing the 9 heavens' pure spirit chi. Luminous white dewdrops rolled across its petals. The translucent petals, etched with Tao patterns, bloomed in overlapping layers, instantly releasing a billion rays of brilliance. This magnificent light seemed poised to dispel the eternal night and illuminate the entire world. The exotic flower floated at the mouth of the abyss. Most peculiar of all, while the area above was as bright as day, the abyss below remained utterly dark, unable to be lit, a pitch-black void where one could not even see one's own hand. The light above soared to the heavens, while the depths below were like hell. Light and darkness existed side by side, yet remained sharply divided, with not a single shade of transition between them. In the Xuanhuan realm, several Earth immortals launched a coordinated probe. Soared light like a starry waterfall, a majestic spiritual seal, and a colossal spiritual aspect tore through the sky, carving terrifying chasms into the firmament. However, before the abyss, these attacks all failed. The demonically beautiful exotic flower swayed gently in the gale wind of heaven. When two of its petals lightly brushed together, the resulting shower of brilliant light completely annihilated the Earth immortal's soared light and spiritual aspect. Furthermore, this entire process was silent and invisible, as if being devoured by a black hole. Within the Xuanhuan realm, everyone's hearts grew heavy. This exotic flower was truly formidable. Clearly, it was a weapon of war belonging to a civilization. Before the Abyss civilization, even if heavenly gods still walked the earth, they would rot. Let alone anyone else, you are all but dust. From the boundary where light and dark were sharply divided, the voice of the abyssal species echoed, resounding through heaven and earth. Within the Xuanhuan realm, the earth immortal ancient monsters remained composed, their eyes fixed solely on the exotic flower. Some of the young and strong, however, couldn't resist the urge to retort. The gold ranking immediately stopped them. In a battle between two supreme systems, there was nothing to argue. Standing within one's own faction, one's stance would naturally be biased. The words of the abyssal species were incredibly grating, filled with contempt, nothing more than an assertion of their own strength. At a critical moment like this, just charge in and fight. Any words were pale and useless. If you could pin your opponent to the ground and grind them into the dirt, then no matter what arrogant nonsense they spouted, they'd even have to call you, father, and bear it. Seeing their two allies intervene and display such overwhelming power, each manifesting their spiritual aspect and war form, the totem faction's own thoughts began to race. The Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization sent timely transmissions, urging the totem faction to join the fray and launch a combined attack on their enemy. A group of totems readily agreed. They sought revenge, convinced that with two supreme civilizations leading the charge, the Jade Capital faction was doomed to fall. Blood for blood. They roared, their confidence restored. They were ready to feast on their fallen foes. The sacred mountain trembled with a powerful resonance. All the carved totems seemed to come to life, and auspicious haze soared into the sky. The legendary totem gods of ancient times appeared as if they were stepping out from the mountain walls. The entire pitch-black mountain transformed back into a colossal altar. Their previous defeat had been brutal. If word reached the depths of the night mist world, their reputation would be ruined, and their status would plummet. Now, they re-entered the battle, desperate to reclaim their glory and honor. A great totem secretly warned them, remember, don't get carried away. Don't rush to the front lines. Just make a show of it this time. They only needed the title of participants, to stand on the side of the victors. Afterward, they could loudly proclaim that they had helped crush the Jade Capital faction. Within the Xuanhuan realm, from the oldest Earth immortals to the young and strong, everyone felt their nerves tighten. With three major civilizations attacking simultaneously, the pressure skyrocketed. Can we still hold out? At this moment, many people began to mentally review the contents of their farewell letters, regarding this battle as their final stand. Rumble. A silver wave surged to the heavens as the stone statue woman fully awakened. Her 8 spiritual manifestations materialized, tearing through the sky as divine radiance illuminated both heaven and earth. Meanwhile, in the abyss, the exotic flower bloomed. Every petal was woven with dense Tao patterns, emitting light that pierced the heavens, a light capable of erasing an earth immortal. And there, layer upon layer of petals. This was a clash of systems, incomparably dangerous. Even a peerless expert of the 7th realm, fighting alone, would be like a moth to a flame, instantly annihilated. At the critical moment, the gold ranking asked the people of the Xuanhuan realm, have you ever seen a sky full of stars? The crowd shook their heads. Of course, they hadn't. The next instant, the night sky washed clean, transforming completely. Glistening radiance flowed like a gentle stream, pervasive and soft. It was as if moonlight was spilling down, evoking a sense of otherworldly purity, and ethereal, luminous beauty. The night mist vanished, and then the stars of the heavens appeared, brilliant, vast, and boundless, adorning the entire firmament. For a moment, everyone stood frozen in awe. Within the Xuanhuan realm, some of the more sensitive young men were so moved that tears welled in their eyes. They had never experienced a world of great light before. To them, it was a legend, a hope, and a longing buried deep within their hearts, and now, it was being fulfilled, realized, and truly seen. This was the overwhelming emotion of seeing the world's true form, a magnificent sight never before witnessed in the night mist world. The enemies were also stunned. Whether it was the seven-headed dragon in the Silver Sea or the mountain-sized, hideous figures in the abyss, their expressions froze in shock. The night sky was clear and bright, and the stars were dazzling. Suddenly, in the abyss, a head as large as a mountain swayed, its face covered in countless golden eyes. After seeing the truth, it roared a warning, danger. Block it. Kill. In the Silver Sea, the silver-blooded winged people, the black flame phoenixes, and others roared in unison, channeling their power into the stone statue woman. In the heavens, the stars of the heavens drew closer, becoming increasingly clear. Then, people saw the massive stars rumbling as they turned, emitting a blinding light. They were not only real but were also hurtling toward them. The entire sky of stars was ablaze, crashing down with a destructive chi mechanism. Only then did the truth reveal itself. Countless meteorites were glowing, piercing through the night veil, burning fiercely, carrying dense Tao resonance and swirling with fragments of order, as they rained down upon the three opposing factions. In this era, the sun had vanished, and the stars of the heavens had indeed become invisible. This was a manifestation of the golden ranking's accumulated power, a relic from the glorious age of Jade Capital capable of assuming various forms. Now, a specific combat mode had been activated. It bore a name, incineration by myriad stars. The golden ranking vibrated, its radiant glow linking the heavens and the earth. It sought to fill the Silver Sea and flood the abyss with the group of stars, a spectacle both magnificent and utterly terrifying. Even the supreme civilizations were overwhelmed, each fighting back with all their might. To them, it seemed like an attempt to destroy the world, an intent of mutual annihilation. Tsunamis surged to the sky. In the Silver Sea, a colossal figure cycled through 8 forms, greeting the approaching group of stars and erupting with blinding holy light that ignited the heavens. The Abyss civilization was no different. The exotic flower ascended, continuously expanding, as if trying to prop up the vast night veil to prevent the group of stars from annihilating all life in the abyss below. The brilliant petals swayed, each movement like a swarm of earth immortals unleashing a dense barrage of sword light that pierced the 9 heavens. The totem faction was numb with shock. They had hidden in the rear, participating as marginal figures, only to find they couldn't escape after all. Now, they were forced to truly fight for their lives. Old Jin, we see it now. Some of the young ones shouted, wiping tears from their eyes. Bai was moved to tears. Was this a desperate bid for mutual destruction? Rumble. In the Silver Sea, a deafening tsunami erupted as meteorites carrying the light of order crashed into it, smashing through the vast ocean and washing the night sky with waves of water. The stone statue woman trembled violently, her spiritual aspect shifting rapidly between various forms. One moment she held a long spear, flicking away great stars, one by one. The next, she flipped through the book of flame, its pages rustling as golden symbols rose to form a protective light screen. In the white-hot blood battle, a blow struck her shoulder. Her hair, ever since, had been disheveled as she was slowly covered and eroded by the net of order woven from the stars in the night sky. In the end, the burning streaks in heaven no longer resembled meteorites or starlight, but a relentless rain of immortal swords. One beam of light after another roared down, each an energy meteorite acting as a blade, trailing tails of light tens or hundreds of miles long. They descended like a deluge, piercing deep into the Silver Sea. The stone statue woman's shoulder erupted in an explosion. Even in her cloud state, she endured the agony of the stars descending to burn the heavens and boil the seas. The spear in her hand dimmed, then shattered with a loud crack. When she shifted into another spiritual aspect, the book of flame in her grasp was pierced through, its pages riddled with jagged holes. Most terrifying of all, the stars plunging into the sea caused the Silver Sea to boil. Those members of the heavenly clan who hadn't taken refuge on the formation platforms were shredded, reduced to flares of light. Above the abyss, the exotic flower bloomed, unfurling tens of thousands of layers of Tao patterns. It sought to seal the heavens with a rain of light, yet the incineration by myriad stars formation still tore through its defenses. The night sky was a scene of utter devastation, littered with broken branches and fallen leaves. The once peerless exotic flower had lost many of its petals, its fragments scattered everywhere. The abyss itself was momentarily illuminated as countless energy meteorites, wreathed in the light of order, crashed into its depths. Colossal figures within the abyss were blasted into bloody mist, while even more monstrous creatures fled deeper underground, summoning the abyss's power. The vast abyss, once like a cosmic black hole, was now crisscrossed with fissures. After enduring a terrible nourishment, its very entrance had been blasted open. The totem sacred mountain had transformed into a magnificent and grand altar, but now it was riddled with several large holes, some of which had been completely pierced through or partially collapsed. Some of the great totems were so enraged that their eyes nearly split. Many more of their elites had perished, and their losses were severe. As one of the three supreme factions, they had joined forces to enter the fray. How could they have been so heavily damaged? Their core leadership was on the verge of madness. At the same time, they felt that the people from the Jade Capital were even more insane. Knowing they were no match for the three major factions, were they really willing to burn their very lives away? Finally, the stars dimmed and gradually receded. The beams of light that had pierced heaven and earth vanished, and the vast night sky returned to its original state. The silver sea surged with waves, unable to calm down for a long time. The stone statue woman had 3 of her spiritual aspects destroyed, nearly halving her power. Her remaining spiritual aspects were also damaged. After exhausting everything, what will you use to compete with me next? The stone statue woman shouted out, her voice a mixture of many men's and women's voices. This was the collective will of the Zongtian clan in the Silver Sea. Even those powerful beings with the deepest minds could no longer maintain their composure, their hearts churning with indignation. Mainly, they had been beaten painfully. Some were crippled, and their once invincible golden body spiritual aspects had been shattered. The Abyss civilization had also suffered severe damage. Its entrance was crumbled, and the Great Abyss was riddled with cracks. Most importantly, nearly half the petals of the abyssal flower, the very embodiment of their war form, had been destroyed, withering and scattering across the ground. Within the abyss, bed-sized broken scales and blood-stained severed horns floated in the darkness, a chaotic testament to the recent brutality. From the depths of the earth, an ancient and domineering voice pierced through. Jade Capital, we shall offer you up in a blood sacrifice. In an instant, the sea of night mist that had begun to surge back into the sky exploded again, scattering in all directions under the terrifying shockwave of the voice. Within the totem faction, some were about to shout their own threats when they suddenly noticed 36 iron rods slowly drifting across the sky, guiding the blood mists of the fallen heroes. Was this some kind of troublemaker? To think it would dare appear at a moment like this. Some great totems, their faces darkened, immediately sealed off the sacred mountain. What was truly outrageous was that the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars were bold enough to act. Seeing the formation in the sacred mountain's damaged areas couldn't be closed immediately, they each plunged down, transforming into crowbars that wedged into the cracks to absorb vast amounts of blood mist and fragmented soul light. The great totems were enraged, the insolence was beyond belief. A group of great totems were being looked down upon. Such a blatant provocation was a slap in the face. In an instant, the entire sacred mountain, despite its gaping holes and web of cracks, erupted with sacred light, attempting to restrain the massive metal rods. With a buzz, the 36 divine pillars shot away like swimming dragons, traversing the void and vanishing into the horizon. From the edge of the sky, a voice boomed, the day we shatter the totem sacred mountain is not far off. They had been more discreet before, having appeared near the Silver Sea and Earth Abyss but never daring to absorb the blood mist so brazenly. What's wrong? Gone silent? Gone quiet? Are you out of strength? Come at us again. Voices echoed from the Silver Sea and the Abyss, each eager for savage retaliation. However, they remained cautious, not striking immediately, but instead launching various probes. Since you insist, I shall grant your wish. The gold ranking declared. The next moment, the group of stars reappeared, illuminating the world. Outside the Xuanhuan realm, the landscape seemed to transform into a sea of stars as another world-ending catastrophe descended. Is this for real? Many in the totem faction felt their resolve crumbling. Was this truly the Jade Capital faction they had once tried to dominate? If they had faced this level of power from the start, they couldn't even bear to imagine the outcome. And this was with the gold ranking primarily attacking the other two factions, not even focusing their full might on them. Roars erupted from both the Silver Sea and the Abyss. Massive waves, black mist, stone statues, and exotic flowers were all engulfed by the overwhelming onslaught of star swords, being pummeled and pierced until the world itself was left scarred and broken. Within the Xuanhuan realm, everyone gasped for air, feeling utterly exhausted. From the eldest to the youngest, they had been fighting with all their might to sustain the gold ranking's ferocious attack. Now, many were on the verge of collapse from sheer exhaustion. When the attack finally ceased, most of them slumped to the ground, too drained to even move. They desperately needed to recover and rest, unable to fight any longer. Even Qin Ming felt waves of fatigue and emptiness washing over him. At that moment, from the great cauldrons atop the various peaks, where ancestral trees and spiritual vines were simmering, wisps of luminous mist carrying the broth flew out, automatically delivering themselves to everyone's mouths. The golden ranking spoke, hurry and recover. Once our deterrent reserves and power are fully spent, I will still be counting on you to take the field. The Silver Sea and Abyss initially fell into a deathly silence. Then, their high-ranking members let out low growls, their hearts filled with endless resentment. They could no longer maintain their former self-assurance and arrogance, their losses were growing ever greater. The Heavenly Clan's stone statue had seen nearly all 8 of its war spiritual aspects damaged or destroyed, left crippled and broken. At the abyss's exit, the exotic flowers had withered and been torn to shreds. It was unknown how many years of recovery they would need before they could fight again. Now, they retreated into the pitch-black depths of the earth. The totem's sacred mountain had been cracked, with many massive stone slabs crumbling. Its entire body was riddled with fissures, leaking light, from both front and back. Restoring it would be even more difficult. An old totem's eyes turned bloodshot. He felt this battle had become an unbearable burden, like a living nightmare. Most infuriating of all, those 36, street-roaming rascals, the divine pillars, had returned. They brazenly thrust through the shattered spiritual formation, greedily devouring the bloody mist without even attempting to conceal their actions. Get out! Some great totems roared, launching their attacks. However, this time, the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars did not immediately retreat. Instead, they challenged the attackers, striking back with a thunderous boom. The totem's sacred mountain trembled as earth and stone erupted, pierced by 36 massive holes. Many totems' pupils constricted. This set of ultimate weapons, after being blood sacrificed and nurtured until now, actually dares to clash with us. The 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars, summoned by the gold ranking, had not fully unleashed their power. They ceased their attack at the right moment, unwilling to waste energy on the totem's sacred mountain. The high-ranking members of the Silver Sea and Abyss were filled with resentment and apprehension. They hadn't expected the gold ranking to be so reckless, using another saturated attack to cripple their war machines. Have you finally exhausted the power you've accumulated this time? Both factions were grimly assessing the situation. You should be drained by now. What other tricks do you have left? The gold ranking's voice boomed in response. Cut the crap. Bring whatever you've got. I'll take it all. Do you think we have no other preparations besides the stone statues and exotic flowers? Your mutually destructive tactics are useless. From the abyss, a rumbling erupted as a pale, colossal hand rose, instantly expanding to cover the entire sky. It was merely a severed hand, yet as it slowly lifted, it exerted an overwhelming pressure that made even the earth immortals tremble with dread. Within the earth abyss, an endless stream of power surged into the hand, making it even more terrifying. Tao resonance flowed through it, and the intricate patterns of cosmic rules intertwined across its surface. To think they still possessed such hidden reserves in this era. Truly horrifying, the gold ranking thought. Simultaneously, from the Silver Sea, a rotting wing ascended. There was no body, no arm, no head, only a single, blood-soaked, tattered wing rising slowly into the air. The gold ranking sneered, given the current state of the world, what's the point of summoning this undead flesh? No matter how glorious it once was, it's now just a rotting corpse, a mere remnant. I actually thought something alive was about to emerge. A cold laugh echoed from the Silver Sea. The Heavenly Clan's high-ranking members poured their own power into the rotting wing, causing it to grow larger as it ascended high into the sky, aiming directly at the Xuanhuan realm. Easier said than done, they retorted. Let's see what you have to stop it. From the abyss, the pale hand also expanded, growing so vast it obscured nearly half the sky. In the Xuanhuan realm, a 9-colored ice mountain rose from beneath the earth. Its ice cracked, and ancient coffins, buried for an unknown number of years, trembled as their lids slowly lifted. These were figures bound by ancient chains. If not for the 9-colored strange ice sealing them and the Tao chains locking vitality, these figures would have long since vanished from history. Zhou Kun, who at his peak was known as a half-step heavenly god, was the most senior figure above the 9 heavens. Among these ice coffins, some had once vied for glory in his own era, while others were even more ancient, their names forgotten by later generations. Finally, the day has come for us to shine and burn our very essence, has it? An aged voice sighed, tinged with melancholy and a sense of helplessness at fate. They had never lived to see a prosperous era where gentle Tao resonance rained down like a deluge. Now, they worried for their descendants, to be forced to this extreme, to require their intervention. Some rose with composure, having lived long enough. Others clung to their ice coffins, unwilling to leave, hoping to wait for a brilliant new era to emerge so they could still ascend to the heavenly immortal domain. Zhou Kun looked at several seniors he recognized and spoke, you are all rotting away. No matter how much you lock vitality, you cannot hold out any longer. Your soul fires are flickering out. What are you hesitating for? An elder said reluctantly, actually, I feel I can still save myself. With Tao chains to patch me up, I could last another 800 years. A supreme true god spoke up, Senior, if you don't come out now, we're ready to burn you. Don't you see your legs are already rotting? Even the 9-colored divine ice couldn't freeze you. It's irreversible, it can't stop the signs of that Tao resonance dissolving. This is called decaying Dao. Neither nine-colored ice nor Dao chains can lock it down. Sigh. Some of the ancient monsters truly hadn't lived long enough. Their reactions were raw, filled with reminiscence of the past and deep unwillingness as they stepped out of their ice coffins. Crack. One of them accidentally broke off a rotting calf. He crouched down, gently and meticulously reattaching it. Old comrades, let's go, let's take on those bastards. They disturbed our slumber and forced us to wake up early. We'll make them pay in blood. Let those extraterrestrial demons witness the supreme grandeur of the most powerful figures of our era. A group of old men and women emerged from the ice, cursing and swearing. Though they appeared decayed, dilapidated, and hideous, and their words were far from elegant, no one dared to mock them. For many knew that these were once the most brilliant of their generation. They had been handsome and refined, possessing peerless grace. But time had stripped them of their youth, severed their splendor, and eroded their former brilliance and elegance. Now, they used coarse language to mask their old age, hiding their melancholy and resentment. This is nine-colored divine ice, extracted from the depths of the night mist world. The high-ranking members of the Silver Sea and Abyss faction were inwardly shaken. They knew all too well how rare that strange substance was. It was incredibly difficult to find, and even if one glimpsed its trace from afar, it was nearly impossible to obtain. It existed only in the deepest reaches of the Calamity Land. Yet the Jade Capital faction had an entire mountain of it. What can a group of old fools with their lifespans running out do? They'll crumble and shatter after a single strike. The leaders of the Heavenly Clan and Abyss civilization declared. You dare to belittle this old one? An elder with a withered body and a bald head glared toward the Silver Sea. So what if we do? A voice boomed from the Silver Sea. The sky-covering Dao patterns of rotten wings intertwined, descending toward the gold ranking. Had it not been for a mishap, I would have long since stepped into the realm of heavenly gods. It certainly wouldn't be your place to pass judgment on me. The elder let out a thunderous roar as his entire body surged with golden radiance. He was channeling the ultimate golden body, and his terrifying blood chi instantly erupted. Countless golden rays erupted from him as his withered body revitalized. With his physical body alone, he tore through the void, taking a single step to appear before the Silver Sea. A colossal golden fist swelled to cover the heavens, smashing down upon the rotting wings. Rotten bones, undead flesh, how dare you cause trouble? His voice and the fist's light roared through the heavens and earth. Behind him, several other elders followed suit, launching their own attacks. In the night sky, the rotting feathers exploded, scattering foul blood everywhere. From the earth abyss, a massive, pale hand descended, threatening to crush the Xuanhuan realm of the gold ranking. Just then, a white-haired sword immortal straightened his back with effort. With a sharp clang, he drew his longsword and declared, I once dreamed of grasping the starry river with a single hand and becoming invincible in all the world, but I was defeated by time. In an instant, an 8-colored sword chi soared into the sky. 8 supreme path domains merged, sweeping across the pale hand and instantly raining blood upon the area. It's that peerless sword immortal. He once quelled the world with a single sword and nearly ascended to the heavenly immortal realm. But during the war against the otherworld, he was besieged by the gods, his origin torn asunder, and he lost his path to heavenly immortal. Many old earth immortals widened their eyes in shock. They hadn't expected this ancient figure to have been frozen in ice, enduring until this very era to once again draw his sword. They knew all too well that the legends about him were true. He had never been defeated by an opponent, remaining dominant throughout his life. In the end, he succumbed not to a foe, but to time itself, as his injuries became incurable. Behind the white-haired sword immortal, a few figures followed. Among them was a hunched old woman, his once beautiful companion who had once captivated the world with her peerless beauty. Now, she was withered with age, having fought by his side through every battle. Slay them. Streaks of light appeared in the sky as the subordinate civilizations of the Heavenly Clan, Abyss, and Totem faction arrived to aid the cause, their war cries shaking the heavens. At that moment, the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars awakened. With a thunderous boom, they shot into the sky, instantly piercing and obliterating one of the subordinate civilizations. Simultaneously, all the special weapon fragments began to glow. They soared into the heavens as the core consciousness within, once belonging to heavenly immortals and heavenly gods, awakened. Some weapon fragments even pieced themselves together, forming nearly complete sets of armor. From within them, a profound sigh echoed, crossing the vast expanse of history from the distant past to the present day. They continued to awaken, their gazes fixed on the furthest reaches of the horizon. Jade Capital faction, you are finished. A cold yet domineering voice boomed from the depths of the earth abyss. The peerless sword immortal, his hair white as snow, was far from his prime. His body had even wavered momentarily, but his voice remained as resolute as ever. As long as the 8th realm remains sealed, I am undefeated in the mortal realm, unless I am utterly destroyed. His arm trembled, yet he forced himself to swing the second sword. Behind him, his old brother-in-arms held him up, channeling his final strength into him. On the other side, his beloved companion also infused him with her power. As she did, her own body rapidly decayed. Her once black hair, now white, withered and crumbled away, strand by strand. Slay. The white-haired sword immortal straightened his back. Within the 8-colored sword chi of the second strike, a faint 9th color flickered. The 9th sword chi had begun to manifest, though not yet fully formed. A 9-colored sword light rent the heavens and earth. With a thunderous boom, it shattered the colossal, pale hand that had been descending upon them, scattering rotten flesh, crushed bone, and foul blood in all directions. Behind him, his old brother-in-arms collapsed. His beloved companion could no longer sustain herself. Both decayed and fell into the night mist. The peerless sword immortal turned and gazed deeply at them, his eyes filled with sorrow and a helpless resignation to the relentless passage of time. After a brief pause, he turned and walked forward once more, whispering, "You and the mountains and rivers are all but mere passing guests." I knew not if he lamented his own fate or mourned his fallen friends and confidants. He never looked back again, but instead swung his third sword with unwavering resolve, slashing down into the abyss. In that instant, it was as if a great river descended from heaven. Boundless sword light and infinite sword intent poured into the abyss, seeking to fill it to the brim and crush it into oblivion. A solitary skiff appeared beneath the peerless sword immortal's feet. Enveloped in supreme sword light and vast, boundless sword intent, he charged toward the abyss, leading the endless sea of sword Tao behind him. He was invincible in this mortal realm, unless he died. Now, he unleashed his final sword intent, piercing through the abyss. He rode the long river of sword Tao, its vast sword light covering the sky and earth, merging with his very being as he plunged into the abyss. You and the mountains and rivers are all but passers-by, a lone boat and a solitary shadow drifting endlessly. From this day forth, he would never be seen in the mortal realm again. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 544, The Supreme Blood Battle concludes 5045 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. Between heaven and earth, the vast sword chi transformed into a river and sea. The white-haired sword immortal's figure gradually faded, like a lone boat sailing across the ocean, pouring into the abyss. In the Xuanhuan realm, many sword cultivators drew their swords in unison. The clanging of their blades shook heaven and earth, a final farewell to him. Qin Ming felt a pang of emotion. The heavens and earth were vast, yet a human life was too short. Even a heavenly immortal could only live for over 2,000 years. Would he, too, one day grow so old that he couldn't even draw his own sword? That peerless sword immortal had been incomparably brilliant in his era. But as his life drew to a close, he stumbled as he walked. When he swung his final sword, he needed the help of his closest friends and confidants. One sword pierces 36 heavens. Where is he now? The sword chi soared into the sky. Then, countless sword lights converged toward the end of the peerless sword immortal's life path, his final journey home. At this moment, people naturally thought of the one who had once unleashed the 9-colored sword chi. Clang. Qin Ming drew his sword. Yin-yang, the 5 elements, wind, and thunder, 9 extreme Tao domains merged. The 9-colored sword light, carrying the power to shatter all things, soared through the empty sky with the intent of, sword asks longevity. The gold ranking empowered him and amplified the sword intent of others. Thousands of sword lights roared and intertwined in the night sky. The white-haired sword immortal merged himself into the sword light, vanishing from sight. Yet, many sensed it, in that final moment, before plunging into the abyss, he had glanced back, his gaze seemingly fixed upon the 9-colored sword chi. Good. Only a few of the most powerful sword cultivators heard the single word he uttered at the end. It carried a hint of relief, and for a fleeting moment, he seemed to smile. Boom. An earth-shattering roar erupted as the abyss exploded. The pitch-black rock walls splintered and cracked. Though not completely destroyed, they were partially obliterated. A magnificent torrent of sword light flooded the sky and earth, engulfing the area. The gold ranking, already heavily depleted, continued to exert its power, causing the Xuanhuan realm to tremble. Slay. On the other side, the immortal physical body cultivator, wreathed in golden light, unleashed his final punch. His body dissipated, merging into the punch's intent. Those who followed him also launched their final strikes. Within the Xuanhuan realm, heavenly venerable Lu Heng and the sage, among others, struck out from afar. They used the power of their ultimate golden bodies and chaos force to send the man off. The gold ranking showed no favoritism, once again manifesting its power to empower them. The silver sea burst open, its great waves washing the heavens. A colossal avian shadow of the heavenly clan soared into the sky, only to be obliterated in a thunderous explosion. Silver-blooded strange persons were bathed in blood. The sage stood with his hands clasped behind his back, sighing softly. The heavens and earth are vast, and we are all but travelers on a journey. Whether it be an individual or the mountains and rivers, how solitary and insignificant we are. Even the strongest of an era leaves behind nothing more than a fleeting reputation. The ancient clan leader of the Huang family asked, "Fellow Taoist, you seem deeply moved. Have you attained a heart that transcends the mundane world?" The sage replied, "No, I simply wish to live longer." From the Silver Sea, the colossal body of the seven-headed heavenly dragon emerged, its voice booming, "We have all suffered great losses in this battle. Deep within the night mist world, countless crimson eyes must have already opened. Why don't we call it a draw?" A thunderous voice erupted from the abyss as a mountain-like figure rose and stepped out. Its tone was hard and uncompromising. "We have traveled from afar. How could we surrender so easily?" On the silver light steaming sea, the seven-headed heavenly dragon pondered before finally saying, "It is unwise to continue fighting. How about this? Jade Capital shall cede this enclave to us as compensation." Above the abyss, the colossal monster, its face covered in countless golden eyes, sneered, "A mere territory with limited borders and such barren land, what use is it to us?" The seven-headed heavenly dragon said, "The mineral resources here are abundant, containing various rare metals suitable for forging formations. Furthermore, deep within the night mist world, other supreme civilizations have already set their sights on this place. If we continue fighting, I fear others will seize the opportunity to reap the benefits." Afterward, both great factions turned their gaze toward the depths of the Xuanhuan realm, discussing a ceasefire. The gold ranking replied, "You're colluding to seize this precious land. Do you have any shame? Have you won? Where do you get the audacity to make such demands? Don't you realize how depleted you are? If we keep fighting, I will certainly pay a price, but you will likely suffer complete disintegration. Isn't your ultimate move designed to destroy both you and your enemy? To self-detonate, yet you can't even drag us down with you. We're only offering a ceasefire now because we don't want to reach that final step." The heavenly clan and the monsters of the abyss civilization in the Silver Sea had already begun to retreat, no longer as aggressive as before. The gold ranking said, "You've just been beaten into submission. You're afraid that if you fight to the end, you won't be able to wear me down." It was a creation from the brilliant period of Jade Capital. Though the artifact spirit was now exhausted, its attitude remained arrogant and unyielding. It understood these two supreme systems. If it took one step back, they would advance 2 steps forward. How about this? Cede the plains where your heavenly clans, Freedom City, is located, as well as the dark mountains of your abyss civilization. I've heard the resources there are quite good. Consider it war reparations. Are you insane? You dare demand we cede territory? The high-ranking officials of the heavenly clan and the abyss civilization turned their gazes cold. Have you not seen how many subordinate civilizations have followed us here? Do you intend to fight us to the death in a supreme blood battle? The gold ranking replied indifferently, "Just a rabble. If it were me, I wouldn't deign to lead such a force to their deaths." Within the Xuanhuan realm, some top-tier Taoist lineages actually didn't want to fight anymore. If they had a choice, they would rather not fight to the bitter end. At this moment, they were all just listening quietly. The voice emanating from the Silver Sea turned icy cold. "So there's no room for negotiation. We're still fighting, then." The abyss civilization immediately ordered, "Attack." The gold ranking declared, "Who's afraid of whom? Let's set off another big firecracker." In an instant, the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars rattled loudly. Each one stood tall, piercing the heavens and the earth. The inscriptions upon them shifted from blurry to clear, depicting maps of mountains, rivers, and all creation, as well as sacrificial texts. They roared with sound, hurtling through the void. With a swish, they teleported, then descended from the sky, covering a war island beneath them. That was a subordinate territory of the heavenly clan, sent to reinforce by order and led by an ancient monster of the 7th realm. They had activated the formation, intending to resist. However, the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars, nourished by the massive amounts of blood mist and soul fragments from the totem clan, had become more powerful than ever. Each one crackled with thunder and lightning, accompanied by eerie prayers and sacrificial chants. Like pillars supporting the heavens, they detonated with a thunderous roar, pierced through the void, and drove themselves completely into the massive war island. Then, each one lit up, tearing it apart and grinding it to pieces. This subordinate civilization exploded. Crucially, the blood mist that rose from the island was completely absorbed by the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars. It fed on war to sustain its war, a truly devastating weapon in such a large-scale blood battle. The sage's eyes were deep as he muttered to himself, "The heaven-stabilizing divine pillar. Is it a divine pillar that stabilizes heaven, or a pillar that stabilizes a heavenly god? He had personally wielded it for over a century. Attack, surround and annihilate them. Since you insist on fighting, then prepare for total annihilation. Cold voices echoed from the Silver Sea and the abyss as the great battle erupted once more. Both locations erupted in brilliant light as they unleashed their terrifying weapons. And once again, a rotting dragon's head, as large as a mountain, emerged from the Silver Sea. It roared as it surged upward, even more powerful than the rotting wings from before, and launched a fierce assault. From the abyss, a terrifying half-face covered in eyes ascended into the sky, unleashing thousands of beams of light in a torrential assault on the Golden List realm. Meanwhile, the subordinate civilizations were under strict orders to attack like madmen, or face ruthless liquidation by the supreme civilization afterward. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The five-colored treasure fragment roared, transforming into a suit of armor. Though empty, it seemed to sigh as a five-colored sword materialized in its right hand. Then, it charged forward, fully awakened. It wasn't the only one. Within the golden ranking realm, all special weapons flared with a final, dying brilliance, as if their old masters had returned to wield them once more. The nine-colored ice mountain also began to crack and groan. Decaying ancient monsters emerged, some resigned, others reluctant. Whether willing or not, they all stepped out. An old woman sighed, "We've nurtured these corpses for years, only to use them in a single moment. But it's only right. Without the nine-colored ice mountain, we would have perished long ago. We should have known this day would come 1,000 years ago." The golden ranking replied, "Your sacrifice today will also cleanse the sins of your descendants. Some of your unworthy offspring committed grave mistakes. If the Jade Capital returns, a reckoning is inevitable." What? The decaying experts who had just emerged from beneath the nine-colored ice mountain were stunned. Meanwhile, the current Earth immortals from the ancient factions, such as Star Mountain, Purple Heaven Cave, and Thunder Marsh Palace, trembled in fear. The heaven-locking incident hasn't been settled yet. The gold ranking declared, "I am only responsible for the external war and do not interfere in such matters. However, it is likely that when the Jade Capital reappears, it will seek accountability." Instantly, the true gods and earth immortals from the ancient factions lost their composure. The gold ranking continued, "Just now, you witnessed that peerless sword immortal and the expert who has mastered the ultimate golden body. Both achieved extraordinary feats. Their contributions will be recorded as they are, serving to atone for their descendants' sins." Immediately, a peak earth immortal rushed toward the nine-colored ice mountain and shouted, "Ancestor, please come out of seclusion." Tiān, ha ha ha. Another ancient monster from the seventh realm reached the foot of the mountain and fell to his knees, crying out, "Ancestor, wake up. Your body hasn't decayed much, you must still possess your peak power. Come out and fight for the family." In the distance, many onlookers watched dumbfounded. Those on the ground exchanged bewildered glances. They had no ancestors entombed in the ice mountain, and seeing this scene made them feel it was utterly absurd. "You bastards! You unfilial descendants!" Some of the ancient monsters within the nine-colored ice mountain were so ancient that outsiders no longer knew which era they belonged to. Yet, their descendants still vaguely remembered them and called out for their emergence. The ancient factions in heaven hadn't always been corrupted. In the distant past, they had once been home to countless heroes. How else could they have given rise to figures like the white-haired sword immortal? In truth, all the ancient factions had originally been on the ground. It was precisely because they were so dazzlingly powerful that their ancestors had raised their grotto heavens into the sky, ascending above the nine heavens. But just as no dynasty lasts forever, those grotto heavens eventually reached their peak and began to decline. The factions that had survived to the present day were already considered the most powerful of their kind. Many other major organizations had long since vanished into history. For example, some of the now decayed ancient monsters who wandered out in confusion found no one to claim them as kin. Meanwhile, the seniors who did have descendants felt their composure crumbling. They wished they had no living descendants at all. These offspring were so utterly filially bankrupt that they were practically inviting their ancestors to a death sentence. "How could you have fallen to such a state?" A senior with a decaying face declared, his eyes tolerating no compromise. He was a man of the ancient era, known for his integrity and fierce righteousness. Upon learning that his descendants had the audacity to seal off the heavens, all to prolong their own lives, he trembled with rage. Someone pleaded, "Ancestor, please, do not be angry. We thought that the Jade Capital had vanished, and that we would need to take up the mantle to defend against external enemies. We had no choice but to use the resources at hand to stabilize ourselves and wait for a future opportunity to break through. Bastards." Not all the seniors buried in the ice mountain were paragons of virtue and integrity, especially those sent in over the last 400 years. Tracing back, they might have been one of the corrupt main roots. At this moment, some of them lay silent in their ice coffins, stalling for time. If only they could survive this great war. After all, they were still young, and hadn't rotted at all. However, the leaders of these ancient factions, eager to earn merit and avoid future purges, were almost all present. They had already begun calling out names from the family tree. 15th ancestor, come out quickly. I was the one who personally sent you in back then. Your condition must be absolutely peak. Hurry and contribute to the clan. Damn it all. Some of the seniors lying in their icy tombs trembled with fury. You truly live up to the legacy of my teachings. In this generation, the leaders of the ancient factions were all personally trained by those rotten, main root tendrils, and thus they were intimately familiar with the ancestors' conditions and mindsets. In fact, they were even more adept at struggling in this domain than the ancestors who had first corrupted. Before the nine-colored ice mountain, all walks of life were on full display. Qin Ming, Bai Meng, and the others were truly amazed to see a group of people digging up their own ancestors, urging them to depart from this world. Actually, the nine-colored ice mountain did not only contain heavenly true gods and the seven convergence realm, it also held ancient peerless powerhouses from the ground. Just now, one such person stepped forward, a former peerless expert from the ground. He was an elder who still retained a hint of scholarly elegance. His white robes fluttered, his complexion was sallow, and his once handsome face was now covered in wrinkles, with gray-white hair cascading down. He gazed up at the night sky and sighed softly, I was once hailed as the strongest divine seed of my generation. Some praised me, while others cursed me as a dog on a Tao chain. Glory or disgrace, I have walked this path my entire life. Whether I was lucid or muddled, it was still a lifetime. Let all praise and blame scatter with the wind. He strode forward, his momentum growing ever more formidable. All traces of my existence in this world will vanish today, he declared. What is there left to fear? Raise my heavenly blade and sever your dog heads. With a thunderous roar, his divine light erupted, his spiritual aspect swelling to a terrifying size. In an instant, he towered as high as the mountains, a colossus that spanned heaven and earth. He charged into the silver sea, his heavenly blade cleaving through a vast expanse of the ocean. In this moment, he embodied the might to devour mountains and rivers, utterly fearless. From the very start, he burned his entire essence chi and spirit, unleashing his most powerful sword intent, the very essence of his life. It was difficult to judge these ancients. As he himself had said, some would praise them, others curse them. Whether honored or humiliated, all would be swept away by the wind in this battle. Despite their grumbling, the ancestors who had been summoned from seclusion finally joined the fray. Whether willing or not, they had no choice. If they took the initiative to act, they could all maintain a shred of dignity. Naturally, some were reluctant to engage in such a blood battle. This was only human, not everyone could possess a world-shaking heroic spirit or the might to devour mountains and rivers. Regardless, they ultimately lent their strength. Judging by their actions rather than their intentions, these individuals were recognized by all sides. The gold ranking was weakening, yet it still chose to empower the top experts. To think I'd truly have to wait for this very life. What's the point of lingering on, half dead and half alive? I've endured until now just to burn away my last, peerless strike. A burly man strode forth, wielding a massive hammer wreathed in billions of lightning bolts, man and hammer alike hurtled forward, plunging into the abyss below. An elderly Dao companion couple awakened and exchanged a tender, lingering gaze. The man gently tucked a stray lock of white hair behind the woman's ear. The wrinkles aren't flattering, she whispered. The old man shook his head. No. In my eyes, even among the immortal maidens above the 9 heavens, I can't bring myself to look at anyone else. You will always be the most beautiful. Many watched in silence. Though some found the display cloying, they understood, this was their final chance for intimacy. Sure enough, their gazes softened with tenderness for a brief moment before turning solemn. Hand in hand, they charged into the silver sea. Amidst the thunderous roar, 2 brilliant spheres of heavenly fire incinerated the silver sea until the couple's own lights were permanently extinguished. The supreme civilization blood battle was brutal. Whether it was the Heavenly Clan, the Abyss Civilization, or the Jade Capital, all had deployed their deepest reserves, paying the price in blood and life. If we keep fighting, the other supreme civilizations of the Night Mist world will just swoop in and snatch the spoils. Do you really want to continue? The Heavenly Clan was growing impatient. They hadn't expected their opponent to be so tenacious, making it impossible to wear them down. You must pay us reparations. The Golden Ranking declared. A chorus of angry voices, a mix of men and women, erupted from the Silver Sea. You're all bluffing. Have you forgotten? Jade Capital has already vanished, while our Sky City still stands tall beyond the heavens. Do you really want to provoke its wrath? You couldn't possibly withstand it. From the vast, ruined abyss, an old but powerful voice boomed, "Our ancestral abyss also remains. After losing Jade Capital, what could you possibly use to fight us? And you still dare to demand reparations?" Gold Ranking replied, "Jade Capital will naturally reappear. But your Sky City and Ancestral Abyss? They'll likely never emerge from seclusion, will they? Besides, if you weren't worried, you wouldn't have sent us to test your strength. Then we keep fighting." The Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization had always been accustomed to dominance. They had intended to retreat and merely claim a piece of the enclave, but the other side refused and even demanded war reparations. This enclave is suspicious. They must be after more than just the rare minerals here, Gold Ranking and some of the other ancient monsters thought warily. In the distance, the totem faction was recuperating. While all the great totems were catching their breath, they received a transmission from their allies. The decisive moment has arrived. Let's charge through the Jade Capital faction together. At this time, the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization showed the totem faction full respect, recognizing them as a supreme civilization and pulling them onto the battlefield. Shortly after, a large chunk of the totem sacred mountain collapsed, struck by 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars. A great totem died instantly, his blood mist being absorbed. The five-colored treasure fragment transformed into a humanoid figure and slashed at the sacred mountain. Other special weapons also liquefied, forming humanoid shapes that swept across the sky to attack. If they hadn't been shattered, they would have been incomparably more powerful than they were now. The totem faction's members wanted to curse. Their so-called two supreme allies were completely unreliable. They had been used as the main force, pushed to the very front, and subjected to the Jade Capital's faction's most terrifying attacks. The altar formed by the totem sacred mountain was nearly broken in half, losing its ability to fight on the front lines and threatening to collapse at any moment. At the critical moment, the Heavenly Clan and Abyss civilization finally lent a hand, rescuing them because they didn't want them to be annihilated here. However, the sacred mountain was severely damaged, and their losses were catastrophic. The Gold Ranking captured several living totems and immediately interrogated them. Some 7th Realm ancient monsters also participated in the torture, and they finally obtained valuable information. An ancient totem, while traveling in this region, once briefly witnessed a bright moon ascending into the sky. The moon has appeared. How is that possible? Within the Xuanhuan realm, the group of ancient monsters were all shocked. Yet, this seemed to be the truth and the fact. Otherwise, how could it have alarmed the totem faction and drawn the Heavenly Clan and Abyss civilization, who were their sworn enemies? The Jade Capital is gone. They are probing us, hoping to devour us. At the same time, if they cannot defeat us, they intend to seize this enclave. True gods of the 7th realm personally conducted the interrogation, even resorting to searching the enemy's spiritual domain. As a result, the sea of consciousness of the three totems shattered one after another. However, they ultimately obtained the most valuable information. The ancient totem, who had traveled to the enclave, had sworn a blood oath upon his return, stating that he had not missing. He had indeed briefly witnessed a bright moon slowly rising. Furthermore, the ancient totem had soared into the air, attempting to approach it, only to be eroded by the Tiān power and frozen in the night sky, his consciousness once blurring. In his hazy state, he vaguely saw that divine moon finally sank into the ground. Moonlight occasionally emerged from the distant surface until it completely vanished. There might be something extraordinary in this territory. The great battle raged on. Those of you who have a chance to break through the barrier and have stepped forward of your own accord, hold back for a moment. As the fight wore on, even the Gold Ranking began to feel the sting of loss. It had witnessed a young and strong cultivator emerge from seclusion, his talent no less than that of the white-haired sword immortal. Years ago, due to cultivating a unique cultivation technique, he had fallen into a deep slumber and was placed in an ice coffin. Now, he had awakened, ready to fight to the death. Several others like him were stopped by the Gold Ranking and told to wait in reserve. The Gold Ranking favored peerless geniuses. An earth immortal, ancient and decaying, his skin threatening to peel off with every step, suddenly turned his head and saw Cheng. In that instant, he was utterly incredulous, his mind reeling in shock. Yet, he dared not stare and silently turned away. Who had he seen? The Dharma King from back then. How is he still alive? And younger? Am I mistaken? No, even the mole between his eyebrows is identical. Most importantly, his aura and demeanor haven't changed at all. Lost in his thoughts, he reminisced about the past. Back then, he could only watch from afar, never daring to approach. Now, in this life, he actually saw him again, and he had undergone reverse growth. This defied all his understanding. Is this kind of technique one of the forbidden? To actually achieve reverse growth, he didn't dare think further or look again. All that awaited him was decay, corruption, and the current blood battle, death. Unfortunately, no one can truly achieve immortality. All things have a lifespan. The techniques of the Forbidden can, at most, steal one more lifetime. This was his final thought before he disintegrated with a thunderous crash in the midst of the battle. This colossal conflict, which shocked the outer regions of the Night Mist world, raged for 2 days. In the end, all parties had fought to a standstill, their resources severely depleted. The gold ranking was covered in cracks. Though it could be restored and healed, it would take time. At this moment, a group of 7th Realm ancient monsters lay scattered across the ground. They had nearly exhausted their primordial qi and Xuanhuan qi, leaving them unable to fight any longer. The dog sword immortal had even had a section of its tail chopped off. So enraged that it had lost the strength to fight, it lay on the ground, still snarling and growling. Jo Kun had lost an arm, and a war spear was still embedded in his chest. The Ridge Lord of Heavenly God Ridge had fallen in battle, leaving not even a corpse behind. The sage looked down at his bare arm. His fist had been blown away. Although it could grow back, the new palm would still need to be nurtured and tempered to adapt to the chaos force. The number of current Earth immortals who had fallen in battle was not excessively high, mainly because the seniors beneath the 9-colored ice mountain had charged at the vanguard. Wave after wave of the ancients descended, resolutely meeting their deaths. This battle was brutally fierce. The coffins beneath the 9-colored ice mountain were now more than half empty. I reckon that if I were to vie for it now, I, too, could secure a spot in one of those ice coffins, remarked an elderly Earth immortal whose fundamental essence had been torn asunder. The gold ranking spoke, the ice mountain is reserved for those who are prepared. A group of seniors, who were already rotting and about to die, cleared out space for you. Some 7th Realm experts who are interested can apply, they should be able to lie inside. This joke wasn't funny at all. A group of 7th Realm ancient monsters lay on the ground, unwilling to move. The Silver Sea had collapsed for a moment, once breaching its banks. The gold ranking had taken the opportunity to absorb some of it, otherwise, it would have been even more severely injured than it was now. In fact, not only the gold ranking, but even the Abyss civilization had quietly intercepted a portion, and the Totem Sacred Mountain had even used it to heal its wounds. During the Great Battle, the Abyss had ruptured, allowing various factions to quietly siphon off some of the primordial life essence flowing from the depths. Why? The high-ranking members of the Totem faction were furious. In the end, the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss civilization could no longer hold out. They agreed to withdraw their troops and even ceded a piece of land to the gold ranking, which continued to fight relentlessly. As for that piece of land, it came from the Totem faction. Some great totems broke down, no longer able to maintain their cold and profound demeanor, and began cursing wildly internally. Whether they liked it or not, they had to passively accept this covenant. The main reason was that the Jade Capital faction's strength had exploded in this battle, and their fighting spirit was at its peak. Meanwhile, the Totem faction had nearly been crushed. Many who witnessed this battle no longer recognized them as a supreme civilization. Their performance was so abysmal that their prestige and status plummeted. In a certain sense, they had also reached their peak, just in the opposite direction. Had the great battle truly ended? The main battlefield had fallen silent, and all the seniors were too exhausted to fight any longer. In this era, without nurturing oneself with primordial qi or Xuanhuan qi, even a grandmaster wouldn't dare to make a move lightly, or they would die. In fact, the supreme blood battle had concluded, but the slaughter in the secondary battlefield was just beginning. The 4 supreme civilizations had already learned that the ancient totem had discovered the divine moon and had been frozen by the Tiān power. Naturally, none of them would give up. According to the ancient totem's final detection, the area where moonlight appeared was half within the enclave and half in the blood forest of the outer domain. The old fogies had lowered their banners and were too weak to fight, but the young and strong, the grandmasters in their prime, and the core saints were likely unable to restrain themselves. Just like Qin Ming, who was already wiping his long sword blade and tempering his 9-colored sword qi. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel. Novel, Night Without Borders. Chapter 545, Become Family Through Marriage 5084 plus words. Author, Chen Dong. Translator, Shadow Knight AK. Editor, Shadow Knight AK. An ancient monster of the 7th realm had once been frozen solid by the Tiān power. This region likely harbored extraordinary, ancient relics, tied to certain ancient events and the secret of the moon's disappearance. Clearly, none of the 4 supreme civilizations would ever give up on pursuing it. Qin Ming took a deep breath. Tangible chaos force overflowed from him, spreading outward and distorting the night sky. He wasn't the only one. Li Wanfa, Wei Shuzhen, Xie Xian, and others were also conserving their strength. The younger generation donned their armor and polished their weapons, ready to enter the fray at a moment's notice. Grandmasters in their prime, their blood and chi at its peak, sat with eyes closed, breathing deeply. Divine light shimmered within their flesh as their invisible force fields expanded. The gold ranking warned, if moonlight is detected, report it immediately, do not approach it rashly. After all, even an ancient totem had been corrupted by the Tai Yin power while chasing the moon, leaving his consciousness blurred. This indicated the extreme danger involved. Within the Xuanhuan realm, large cauldrons bubbled with a rich medicinal aroma. Earth immortals with torn origins and founding ancestors with war spears still lodged in their bodies were taking the medicine, which effectively eased their injuries. Though they were too weak to join the front lines, they could not leave. They had to hold the rear. Should any sudden crisis arise, the gold ranking would draw upon its last reserves to help them don their armor and wield their weapons once more. The gold ranking hung in the sky, scattering wisps of spiritual essence that transformed into a rain of light, falling upon the cities below and the tribes in the remote regions. It was purifying. Many on the ground had been corrupted by those altars. They had worshipped totems, influencing one another. Members of many tribes had not only seen their bodies swell and turn savage, becoming akin to barbarians, but had also allowed their very souls to become clouded. They were in dire need of the spiritual rain's cleansing touch. Across the land, in several major towns and cities, many people awoke as if from a dream. What happened? Why does it feel like I've been in a great dream? Was I worshipping an evil god? That day, some who awakened destroyed the altars and smashed the statues. This was mainly because grandmasters had descended, personally informing them that the power of the Jade Capital had returned to protect this land once more, and would never allow the totems to invade again. The Silver Sea and the Abyss had not retreated far. After withdrawing from the enclave, they hovered above a primeval forest. The Blood Forest encompassed countless mountain ranges and vast plains, covering a massive area. Mysterious moonlight had once steamed up from its depths. After the great battle ceased, both sides each held their ground, forming a stalemate. From within the colossal abyss, a giant as tall as a mountain rose into the air. His face was covered in golden eyes, his gaze twisting the void. His voice boomed like heavenly thunder. Since we have ceased hostilities, I hope we can both abide by our agreement. After all, in the depths of the night mist world, crimson eyes are watching. If we continue this blood battle, someone will surely come to seize the advantage. The Heavenly Clan and the Abyss Civilization, two major factions, had always played the roles of the good cop and bad cop, with the Heavenly Clan playing the former and the monsters of the Abyss the latter. Now, even the hardliners' tone had softened. It was clear that they had suffered devastating losses in this battle, pain that had seeped into their very marrow. Naturally, they were unwilling to reignite the war. The gold ranking had temporarily acknowledged them, and it had naturally sensed other supreme civilizations watching. If the fighting continued, serious problems would truly arise. The Heavenly Clan even proposed that the three great systems sign a rule covenant, stipulating that all immortals, gods, and others must not intervene in this realm. As for why it was three factions and not the four supreme civilizations, no one explained, nor was there any need to. In any case, the totem faction was temporarily being ignored. The great red dragon squawked, how about we follow the ancients? We'll swear a blood oath and become good brothers from now on. We could even become family through marriage. After the blood battle, it was still so full of energy, truly an anomalous one. The great red dragon flapped its massive wings in the night sky, drawing the gaze of many. The sage's face twitched slightly. During the great battle, his mount had been shielded by his chaos heavenly light and remained largely unharmed, looking even more carefree than its master. Come back, he roared. The sage knew this dragon's temperament all too well. Once it got excited, it would run wild without restraint. It was a mercy the dragon was still only in the sixth realm, or it would be truly impossible to restrain. However, his command came too late. The great red dragon, brimming with energy and in the middle of a spirited conversation, completely ignored the sage behind it. With no sense of its duty as a mount, it declared, I believe we should follow the ancient custom, a diplomatic marriage. As it spoke, the dragon revealed its large, snow-white teeth, lifting its head to gaze at the silver sea above the blood forest. With a brilliant smile, it added, your heavenly clan could marry off the seven-headed dragon to us. Instantly, a dragon's roar shook the nine heavens. Towering waves surged in the silver sea as the colossal form of the seven-headed heavenly dragon emerged. Each of its heads was like a small mountain, radiating an overwhelming pressure. Then, it unleashed a torrent of dragon language, the highest level of ancient dragon language. The great red dragon tilted its head, unable to understand some of the words. That's not impossible, a one-eyed dragon in the silver sea replied, flapping its black, leathery wings and grinning at the great red dragon. You could become the matrilocal husband. The sage hastily snatched his mount back, and the so-called marriage alliance naturally fizzled out. That night, high in the sky, the sea of night mist churned. A majestic divine light flared violently. The new ranking had arrived. With a gentle tremor, it rained down spiritual objects, Tao resonance, and other treasures like a torrential downpour. All of them plunged into the gold ranking, instantly accelerating the healing of its cracks. Seeing this, even the ancient monsters of the seventh realm breathed a sigh of relief. The night mist world was extremely dangerous. The moment you weakened, you could become someone else's prey. The golden ranking inquired, "These aren't objects from Jade Capital. Where did you procure them?" The spiritual objects, rare minerals, and Tao resonance it had just devoured clearly bore the characteristics of an otherworld realm. Hearing these words, the ancient barbarian god, the earth immortals of the eastern lands, and others were instantly thrown into turmoil. They immediately recalled a very unpleasant past. After their last clash in the heavens, their homes had been raided by great bandits, not just once, but at least 3 or 4 times. Worst of all, some great thief had even used their pill furnaces to shamelessly refine pills in their own meditation chambers. This had truly enraged some of the ancient earth immortals to the point of nearly ascending to the heavens in fury. Of course, the most devastating blow came after the new ranking distributed the rewards. When they compared notes, they were stunned to find they had each consumed divine items from each other's medicine gardens. Consequently, a group of 7th realm ancient monsters now glared at the new ranking with palpable hostility. The new ranking immediately spoke up, "Rest assured, everyone, your homes are safe, and not a single bit of your rewards will be missing. To secure your benefits, I deliberately traveled deep into the night mist world, risking my life to hunt and supplement our resources." The gold ranking asked, "Where did you go?" It already knew the answer but was merely asking on behalf of the ancient monsters to soothe their anger. At this critical juncture, any internal rift had to be avoided at all costs. The new ranking replied, "You know that new territory you just conquered. The totem factions, Brocade Plain. The moment I heard the name, I knew it was a prime location. I rushed there immediately and cleared out all the created objects to prevent them from relocating any rare materials before the handover." A sudden silence fell over the scene. The new ranking continued unpromptly, "You guys really pulled it off. That territory is massive, truly vast. It's practically the heartland of the totem faction. Perhaps it was a blind spot, but no one noticed me. There wasn't even a heavy military presence guarding it." After a moment, gold ranking finally spoke in a low voice, "The place we signed the contract for was the Tiān Plateau." The new ranking was shocked. What? I went to the wrong place. It comforted everyone, "It's fine. A plateau is pretty much the same as a plain, they both have Plain in their names." It then added, "You know, the Brocade Plain is floating in the air and incredibly rich in resources." The group. Gold ranking immediately warned, "No one is allowed to say a word about this. Keep it under wraps. After all, these are all meant to be your merit rewards." Fortunately, most of those present were earth immortals and veteran experts of the 6th realm. There were a few young and strong ones, so they could effectively seal their lips and prevent the news from leaking. Gold ranking immediately asked, "Did you also go to the Abyss civilization in the Heavenly Clan's territory?" New ranking answered honestly, "I did. I just went to take a casual look." Everyone's gaze turned strange. "And with that, you're claiming you mistook the Brocade Plain for the Tiān Plateau. You're clearly an old pro at this. You have to believe me," the new ranking complained. "My moral bottom line is very high. I really just went to take a look, without doing much. Most Abyss resources are underground and truly difficult to collect. The Heavenly Clan mostly has wings and is very vigilant." From its tone, it had gone and taken action, but the harvest wasn't very large, mainly because it was relatively cautious and unwilling to cause big trouble. Why did the new ranking mainly procure from the totem faction? For no other reason than this system being the weakest. Fortunately, the totem sacred mountain didn't hear its words, otherwise its newly healed body would have cracked open on the spot. There were, of course, hidden circumstances here as well. Following the initial agreement with the gold ranking, before leaving, the new ranking had also led some radical teams from the top hunters to the pastures of the Heavenly Clan and Abyss civilization. What would happen next was beyond its expectations. Undoubtedly, the new ranking's trip this time yielded a rich harvest. Should the golden ranking issue rewards now, it certainly wouldn't be strapped for resources. Afterward, the gold ranking opened a black abyss and sent all the special weapons, including the 5-colored treasure fragments, inside for nourishing. These ancient supreme weapons, forged from strange metal and heavenly immortal blood, would have unimaginable power if they hadn't been shattered. Now they all suffer from a severe affliction, madness. Some are tainted with fragments of their enemy's consciousness, others are entangled with the obsessions of their past masters. Once they awaken and unleash their full power, they easily descend into madness. Now they have returned in glory, only to be confined to the madman's abyss for recuperation. To fully cure them and restore their shattered forms, they must be reborn through a new nourishment of heavenly immortal blood. But such a condition is nearly impossible to fulfill in this era. Many people stared at the 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars, weapons tied to Knight Prefecture's clan fortune, with a hint of envy. This set of ultimate weapons was truly unfathomable. At the critical moment, they had actually pierced the totem sacred mountain, leaving 36 massive holes and even suppressing the great totem. Furthermore, after this battle, it seemed as if a partial seal had been lifted. Their inscriptions grew even more intricate, allowing them to suppress 7th realm ancient monsters even in their normal state. It was highly likely that they had evolved, or were returning, after feasting so thoroughly this time. Is this a set of demonic artifacts? An ancient monster from an ancient faction in heaven asked the sage. Helian Chungyun, the 7 convergence realm from the ground, solemnly corrected, these are all immortal Tao supreme treasures. Sooner or later, they will return to the heights they truly deserve. In fact, even the gold ranking didn't know the origins of this set of ultimate weapons. They weren't on the list of lost treasures of the Jade Capital. The 36 heaven-stabilizing divine pillars had been unearthed by the elders of Knight Prefecture. All they knew was that the more blood sacrifices it received, the stronger it became. Each time it was activated, it affected the very fortune of their clan. It's so bloodthirsty. Isn't it a demonic treasure? Someone muttered. Lu Yu, the 6th imperial ancestor of the Path of Awakening, shook his head solemnly. No, it absorbs the blood mist to purify it, refining the resentment within. Otherwise, if it accumulated, it would eventually bring calamity to the region, perhaps even evolving into a netherworld land. By using it, we are eradicating all filth, refining the malevolent qi, and averting the world's disasters in advance. The sage watched the old man, secretly pondering. This old bastard is incredibly resilient. His age is truly frightening. Has he really not broken through yet? He cursed under his breath, old coot. At the same time, the sage was lost in thought. It was said that all the founding ancestors who studied the chaos force, except for him, had been annihilated, wiped out completely. But, was that really the case? He even suspected that this very technique might be the source of future chaos. Every single one of them had a past that wasn't entirely clean. Whose Xuanhuan is Cao Qianqiu? The totem faction was also present in the Blood Forest, having not retreated. They had been detained by the 2 supreme civilizations, who accorded them courtesy, appropriate status, and respect. What? The Brocade Plain. On the totem sacred mountain, a group of great totems received the news. Their eyes flashed with cold light as altars materialized behind them. They were all consumed by genuine fury and murderous intent. Such terrible news had come from the deep rear, their home base had been stolen. The Heavenly Clan and the Abyss Civilization were also deeply displeased. Their massive mobilization had failed to secure the gold ranking. Fortunately, the corresponding losses were within an acceptable range. Wasn't it just a small piece of land they had to cede? No matter. But whenever the totem faction thought of the land cession, they seethed with indignation. Had anyone asked them? Yet, the totems still compromised and agreed. Despicable. 3 mysterious forces have visited our deep rear. The Heavenly Clan received in the latest report. Slightly damaged. The Abyss Civilization also received feedback. Fortunately, the problem wasn't major. Mainly, they still had Sky City and the Ancestral Abyss behind them, which could deter the various factions. The 7-headed Heavenly Dragon secretly asked, what if our people take the lead, guiding the hunting parties of other super factions to the Jade Capital Realm? Without a doubt, any supreme blood battle would have a vast impact, extending beyond direct conflict to encompass gambles in other domains, involving various storms and repercussions. The headquarters of the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss Civilization also had entities like the New Ranking, responsible for matters outside the main battlefield. Several factions acted independently and had indeed quietly approached the Jade Capital Realm, but in the end, they all withdrew silently. The Abyss Civilization was also privately settling accounts. An ancient monster asked, what happened? Why did they withdraw? The Jade Capital Realm likely truly possesses the legendary Dao rankings. It briefly revived, scaring off all the factions. The high-level leadership of the Heavenly Clan and the Abyss Civilization grew grave. Within the Jade Capital Realm, there was also an ancient object, presiding, unfathomably deep. What form does it take? The greatest image is formless, the greatest sound is silent. It is indescribable. The totem faction felt they had boarded a ship from which there was no escape, the 2 supreme powers would not permit them to withdraw. An ancient totem looked up at the sky and sighed, Brocade Plain. Why? Why must we bear everything again? Within the Xuanhuan realm, a group of young and strong cultivators, including grandmasters, were preparing to depart for the various cities in the enclave. Some seniors were earnestly instructing their juniors, analyzing the situation, and sharing combat experience. Initially, both sides will likely search for moonlight within their own territories to trace the Tai-Yin source and won't easily cross borders. But as time passes, it's hard to say. In the Blood Forest, someone will surely lose their patience. Survival is the top priority. Life is long, and there are many more sights for you to see ahead. Never act on impulse. When you encounter an enemy you cannot defeat, such as a 5th Realm Grandmaster or an invincible core saint, do not fight to the death. Retreat when you must. Ancient monsters from top-tier Dao lineages like Star Mountain, Thunder Marsh Palace, and the Huang family were personally speaking with their sect's grandmasters and core disciples, offering serious warnings. Tang Yusheng, with her black hair flowing like a waterfall and a flawless, pale face, spotted Qinming and immediately lifted her chin. Great Tang felt she was back in top form again. This was mainly because the gold ranking had completely undone her seal, more thoroughly than she could have ever done herself when breaking her own shackles. Moreover, this effect would last for an entire month. She felt invincible for the foreseeable future, her body feeling so light as if she were about to ascend to immortality. Unquestionably, she still harbored a grudge over her last crushing defeat. She glanced at Qinming and said coolly, "Let's spar again when we have the chance." "Forget it. I'm afraid you'll just end up crying like a little girl," Qinming retorted. With just that one sentence, he nearly broke her composure. Tang Yusheng was mortified. So this dark history won't go away, huh? Then let's see who can truly stun this era with their performance on the battlefield, she declared, lifting her chin as she walked away, as cold and elegant as a heavenly immortal, untainted by the mortal world. Bai Meng was speechless. His sister was taking this way too seriously with brother Ming. Although he had full confidence in Tang Yusheng, some primal instinct told him that if she kept this up, she'd only get schooled again, beaten senseless, and end up crying like a little girl. Just then, both Tang Yusheng and Bai Meng spotted the ancestor of Tai Shu. Like a ghost, he had intercepted Qinming's path, initiating the confrontation himself. Bai Meng's expression was strange, as if he had guessed something. Tang Yusheng felt a touch of warmth. The ancestor, a cold, aloof figure who usually minded his own business, had once again stepped forward for her. Yet, he was now acting so down to earth, seeking a private conversation with a junior. Though touched, she also felt it was improper. A 7th Realm expert scaring a junior like this would leave a poor impression. The silver-haired elder pulled Qinming aside and began a serious, private discussion. Qinming's skin crawled. This was precisely why he hated attending top-tier gatherings, the inevitable encounters with ancient monsters. Fortunately, they were still within the golden ranking realm. "You're not bad, young man," the silver-haired elder praised. Qinming froze. "Wait, you're actually praising me? Why so serious? You've got me all worked up, thinking I'm in huge trouble. Are you married?" the silver-haired elder asked. Though his expression remained impassive, his voice transmission was softer, as if he genuinely admired Qinming. "Not yet," Qinming answered truthfully. Good." The silver-haired elder nodded, then began asking for his birth date and astrological details. Qinming. He was completely bewildered but selectively responded to the questions. The silver-haired elder asked, "Young man, do you want to skip 500 years of hard work?" Qinming was stunned. He desperately wanted to ask, "Who are you? Do you happen to have an Earth Immortal younger sister over 500 years old?" In the distance, Tang Yusheng's heart bloomed with warmth. The ancestor is protecting me, she thought. He's warning the guy who repeatedly humiliated me and kicked me 3 times in a row. And for the ancient man to bully the young, like this, he must be under immense psychological pressure, right? "Ancestor, please don't cause him trouble," Tang Yusheng sent a transmission. She felt she could afford to lose and had no need for a senior figure to intervene on her behalf. The silver-haired elder replied secretly and nodded. He sighed. They haven't even gotten together yet, and she's already protecting him. Xiao Tang, the descendant who has always been as aloof as an immortal, is actually pleading for that boy, afraid I'll make things difficult for him. Clearly, Qinming, the silver-haired elder, and Tang Yusheng were not on the same wavelength. Tang Yusheng gave Qinming a reserved glance and drifted away with a graceful, swaying gait. A great person doesn't hold a grudge against a petty one, she thought. Only Bai Meng was on the same wavelength as the ancestor. Xiao Bai had truly guessed something. Brother Ming. Is there a chance he might evolve into my brother-in-law? That was his guess. Wangshu City, the central hub of this enclave, was a colossal metropolis of unparalleled prosperity. Its sprawling walls, which had stood for a millennium, had only grown taller and more imposing with each generation's reinforcements. The city streets teemed with life, a bustling town of beings of all races and complexions, from humans and barbarians to fox women with snow-white tails and elves from distant lands. Seeing elves here, Qinming couldn't help but recall the elven clan he'd encountered in the immortal burial grounds, the ones who had flown away on a massive coffin lid. According to the immortal contract, their princess was still his maidservant. He had learned that the entire clan had migrated, said to have come from the outer domain in pursuit of the legendary Sun Elf dynasty. Within the Xuanhuan realm, all the young and strong, along with the Grand Masters, had descended upon Wangshu City. From here, they would disperse to various regions, each team responsible for a specific area. They were sworn to dig even 30 zhang deep if necessary to find any trace of the divine moon. The supreme blood battle has ended. That was a strategic level force, impossible to sustain. Now, it's our turn. In the sky, core disciples from the ancient factions gathered in taverns, their faces alight with anticipation. The ancient factions, such as Star Mountain, Misty Peak, and Purple Heaven Cave, were undoubtedly the most popular forces. Even their branch teams were swarmed with people. This was only natural. The subconscious desire to align with the strong and gravitate toward top-tier Taoist lineages was a common choice for many. The people and forces on the ground were no different, all forming cliques and alliances. Qin Ming. Over here. Pei Shuyan called out. The same was happening in Night Prefecture, where acquaintances were systematically forming teams and forging alliances. I've been assigned a specific location to guard, Qinming said with a helpless shrug. It was the zone the Golden Ranking had designated for him. In fact, core saints, powerful grandmasters, and others like Qian Cheng and Yin Tian had all been assigned individual territories to guard, conducting the moon-chasing operation. Though the gold ranking was an artifact spirit, it was experienced and considered these individuals to be anomalous ones within their respective domains. Perhaps they could receive heaven's favor and make significant discoveries. Of course, this was also a recognition of their strength. Such individuals could form an army on their own. Where is it? Pei Shuyan asked. Qinming unfurled the map and pointed out the location. Pei Shuyan said, we were just discussing going to that adjacent area. Isn't that perfect? Whether it was a mere coincidence or they were intentionally drawing closer remained unclear. Soon, Yao Ruoxian, Cheng Sheng, Zhou Qingming, and others arrived. Afterward, the crowd from Night Prefecture grew larger and larger, including the junior sect leaders of the Path of Awakening, as well as Helian Yaoqing, Cao Tian, Li Qingshu, and others from the Immortal Path. Qinming sighed secretly. He thought of Xiaowu and Shang Yiwu, wondering where they were and how they were doing now. And senior brother Lu Zizai, what heights had he reached by now? Undoubtedly, behind each faction and team, there were faint shadows of grandmasters. A powerful expert had to be present to ensure their safety. Master, which area are you heading to? After the gathering at the restaurant, Su Mohua caught up with him as he was leaving the city. She extended a warm invitation, mentioning that more than one grandmaster from their clan had arrived. Qinming replied, I'm going to Yinan Gorge. We're probably not on the same path. Su Mohua said, you've already decided on a destination. Well, it doesn't matter. It's not too far from us. We can support each other when the time comes. The various factions and teams set out. When Li Wanfa, Wei Shuzhen, and others departed, many people accompanied them to see them off. After all, these were true grandmasters, whom they could seek shelter and life-saving help from in critical moments. Yinan Gorge was vast, once the subject of legends about moonlight filling the entire canyon. When Qinming arrived, he stared at the endless primeval forest, feeling a bit overwhelmed. The night mist world never lacked for vast territories. Brother Qin, contact us immediately if anything happens, Pei Shuyan, Yao Ruoxian, and their large group said as they bid him farewell. Their standard issue armor allowed them to communicate within a certain range. Additionally, some of them held spiritual conchs. All right. Qinming nodded and began the moon-chasing operation in Yinan Gorge, but it truly felt like searching for a needle in a haystack. This place was not close to the Blood Forest and was not in the border region. Normally, even if the enemy intended to invade, it would be difficult for Qinming to encounter them immediately. Over the past 2 days, Qinming had conducted a spiritual journey through Yinan Gorge, ascending to the 9 heavens and diving 500 zhang deep into the earth, braving the gale wind to search for the mysterious source of the Tai Yin power. However, he had found nothing. It's probably not here, Qinming mused, then began to rest and cultivate. Something's wrong. A top-tier aberrant has been spotted in the Blood Forest. Everyone, be on your guard. Heavenly Clan, Abyss Civilization, what's your meaning? We just ceased hostilities. Are you trying to provoke a war already? Many teams from the Jade Capital faction on the borderlands noticed the anomaly and grew furious, shouting at the opposing side. A terrifying aberrant had breached their territory, cutting a path straight through. Our apologies, the opposing side replied. One of our experts was cultivating a divine technique related to consciousness and suffered a mental instability. He's lost his mind in a state of agitation. Just subdue him and send him over to us. Or, if you prefer, we can join you in the search. The atmosphere at the boundary between the Blood Forest and the Enclave was incredibly tense, with both sides fearing another bloody conflict. All parties had been mentally prepared for this. After their own moon-chasing operation failed, it was only a matter of time before they had to venture into enemy territory, making a fierce clash inevitable. But for this to happen after only 2 days caught everyone off guard. Clearly, even within the Blood Forest, few had anticipated such a development. Only a small clique of experts, the masterminds behind the incident, sneered in satisfaction. Damn it! That high-level anomaly is heading for Yinan Gorge. That's a Grandmaster-level expert. They're retaliating, they're hunting Qin Ming. Along the route, someone spotted the expert's latest movements. The target was clear, they were trying to assassinate Qin Ming, who had already stunned the younger generation at the Supreme Civilization's exchange meeting even before reaching the Fourth Realm. Damn it! How can they be so shameless? They're ruthless. No hesitation at all. The moment they learned Qin Ming's location, they sent a Grandmaster to hunt him down. Did they find him on their own, or did we leak the information? Instantly, those close to Qin Ming began trying to communicate via spiritual conch transmissions. That region, it's been shielded. We can't send messages. The Grandmaster who's attacking carries a treasure. In an instant, people in adjacent regions were exchanging transmissions, agreeing to go to his aid. Pei Shuyan, for example, summoned a Grandmaster from the Immortal Path. Yao Ruoxian immediately led the Great Yu Imperial family's experts to rush to the scene. Cheng Sheng and Zhao Qingcheng also called upon a Grandmaster from the esoteric sect. As for the ancient Grandmasters of the Path of Awakening, they were already racing toward the location. Quickly, go save Qin Ming. The entire region descended into chaos as experts from all factions charged forward. Blank. End of chapter. Subscribe to the MTL World at Malworld 1 YouTube channel.